Sorry, everybody. Welcome to the One of Yours program for Friday, September 19th. I'm Garnet Lee. Joining me around the table today is Andrew Pfister, the yawning Shane Bettenhausen, and continuing his epic podcasting journey for the last 2 days. You did 3 hours yesterday.
Yeah.
I know, and now you're back to do another 2 with us.
Thank you.
None other than Sean Elliott, folks.
Just
All right.
when you thought he was gone.
That's right. Just me. And you know what? He may even come back from the other side next week. You never know.
I'll try to make it worth your while because Stalker Clear Sky and Crisis Warhead are both sitting on my computer at home now. And over the weekend, I'm going to have time to play them both, and I'll be wishing I had some outlet to talk about them. So if you'll have me
It needs to be like deadline.
Sure.
Word count? Don't think so.
Yeah. Impressions.
All right, here's what we got going on. First segment, we're going to be doing what you've been playing. Second segment, if you watch, I just twittered this a little while ago. This is Thursday. We're recording this. I was like, okay, I know, I totally feel like there's no steering around the subject, so we're just going to talk about it. Like what's the connection between game journalism and game development? Is there one? What is it? What's it amount to? I've actually put some thought into this, so it's not just going to be you make more money, or people just go to do that to...
You didn't use air quotes for game journalism. I'm impressed.
All right, well,
you get into it so people...
Yeah, well, hold on. Imagine I put a little bracketed sick next to that.
Okay.
I think people get into game journalism so that people subscribe to their Twitters.
Yeah, that's very meta.
Dude,
very meta.
I'm guilty as charged. That's my one reason, man.
Your Twitter is very different than Garnet's Twitter.
Yeah,
You
a
know
little
what?
bit.
Sean's Twitter has different...
It's full of
has a
bizarre.
different,
I love it. It's
different
links
quality of content than yours.
It's a very interesting quality of content. Anyway, and then final segment, we got news. We got all kinds of news. We got everything from a bunch of Guitar Hero stuff to Electronic Arts to
Rare.
What else we got? We got Rare.
It seems like every week we have at least 2 news stories about Guitar Hero or Rock Band.
I know,
And not just recently, but ever since the show started.
I don't know if you heard that.
I agree with that.
They're
popular.
tripling their SKUs.
Tripling our
kids.
news coverage.
Popular with the kids. All right, so you know what I've been playing this week? This is actually, I know people are going to be like, oh my God, he's just playing a PC game because there's no PC people now and he has to cover it. Actually, I've been wanting to play this for a long time. I had the beta key for 2 weeks.
Half-Life Episode 2. What?
How'd the Brewers do today?
Shut the fuck up.
Didn't they fire their manager?
Oh, yeah, that was a good move. But
That's good?
He was happy about that.
It should have happened last year.
Okay.
Yeah, Yoast toast. That's kind of weird, though. Anyway, we're not a sports show, but anyway, it was kind of weird. So I've been playing Battlefield Heroes, which I've been dying to get into because I've had the key.
Is that the free one?
Yes, that's the free one. And what's really awesome about it for me is that one of the reasons that's been holding me back from playing games is my home gaming PC is like a home gaming PC from 2.5 years ago. So that means
This isn't a high spec.
No,
game.
it's not a high. So and it works. It really one of the targets that they had was to be able to be scalable to all size and all ages of computers, and it works fantastic. I mean, I have a gig of memory in my machine. I have an old Athlon 64, like a 2800 or something, and I have an ATI card, it's like an X800, and it runs I can run it at 1280. Looks really nice. The art style comes across really well. One of the things that does kind of crack me up is people called me out for comparing it to Team Fortress 2, and it does kind of compare to Team Fortress 2. I mean, you've been playing it, right, Sean?
Yeah, visually you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, just sort of got like the feel of and maybe it's just me being overly generalizing about it, but dudes in cartoon-like World War II looking costumes,
Lighthearted death.
lightheartedly
With taunts. It's
Yeah.
also structurally it's a team-based game where you win or lose not on your own actions but on the entire strength of your
Right.
group or the failure of your group. And TF2 is that way too, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I've been in both games where you're on a shitty team because you always got to blame the team, not yourself. And it's clear there's no way you're ever going to win unless someone steps up and says, "All right, guys, I got a plan," and you have to be that guy.
Mm-hmm.
But
and you have to be able to win over the other people and not have a bunch of twerps on your side. They're like, I ain't got you, fuck you.
But it's not. I would. My position has been. I don't think it's a copycat.
It's not copycat. No, I don't think
Not
it's copycat.
gameplay. Not even in the appearance of it.
Yeah, and the art style is definitely different because, well, at least the 2 maps you have, one of them's like Seaside Assault or something. It's sort of like this outdoors thing. It's got like a lighthouse. It's got 4 capture points, and then the other one is the village, which has 5 or so capture points in it. And both of them have a totally distinct style. I mean, they don't have that look T-Forces. I mean, I'm just talking about dudes bunny hopping around with a rocket launcher.
How many players are playing at one time?
In the games I've been in, we've gotten up to like 16 players. You can play 16. The load limit is 16 to keep it scalable. And I was in games that had 16 players.
Is that similar to Battlefield, or does Battlefield have more?
Well, Battlefield 2 and 2142 could have up to 64 players.
That's what I thought. I thought they're larger scale.
But this is like, it's a whole nother story. I mean, in Battlefield 2, you also had maps designed for 16 players. You had maps designed for optimum use of 32 and 64. The 64 ones were often the ones that were the least played, because once you got, I mean, this was the whole thing when I was talking about Brian in Resistance 2 when we first heard about how big this game was going to be, and it was interesting to see how they were solving the problems there by having these like pockets of battle happening in Resistance rather than
otherwise. How do you
map.
find the fun in a giant map? You know?
Yeah, and what happens is like, you know what we're talking about? Say it's hard enough to get a team of 6 people to work as a single unit in Team Fortress. What if you got a team of 32 people? Someone's always going to be doing some shit that's not in the interest of the team. And those, like, you spend a lot of time in those really big games dying a whole lot. So look, you had 2 options. You're out on your own and you're not running into anyone. You're not getting enough action per second. Or you're in an area where all 64 players are, and the only action you're getting is a fucking grenade killing you every 2 seconds and watching a spawn timer.
That's what happens to me a lot in Warhawk. I'll usually just end up lone wolfing it because no one really communicates very well, at least in the games I've played, which are unstructured.
See,
granted,
the one problem with playing in betas is the kind of person who plays in a beta is more of an interested gamer. I did use air quotes there. You know, it's like it's the kind of person that's into the game, isn't casually playing it probably, and isn't motivated to like break it or see what they can screw around with. So far the games I've had, like for the past, like been playing since Friday, have been awesome. And typically, like if there's 8 people playing, what'll wind up happening is a couple of groups of 2 will hop in tanks. Like one dude will drive a tank and one guy will hop in the top of the turret, and then, or maybe one of them will hop in the tank and another one will hop in the plane, and then like the rest will form like a strike group and keep together and go after the different capture objectives.
There's something to note in the beta right now that you can't. The friends list and stuff's not all been placed into the game, and you can't choose the server you're going to join. So that means is that if you see that teamwork, it's happening spontaneously, or it's happening through people brute forcing it by one player joins, and then the others continue to hit play now until they end up in the same server. And I've done that with groups.
That makes sense, yeah.
And so I would expect it's going to change when people are in there with groups that they're used to playing with, and then that's when it gets really interesting. I mean, because if you're playing with a team that's a legitimate team, and you've got one of those spontaneous teams, you're going to be in for some trouble.
Oh, the spontaneous team
even more so
raped,
when they've kitted themselves out before they've joined the server, hoping to get that map, because you want different builds on Seaside and Village. There are different types of maps. Village has got no tanks.
Right,
it's got no.
I know it's
so you want like a good tank build or something, for example, on Seaside, and you get 4 of you, and every one of you on your team gets a tank. If you have to, you steal one of the enemies. You all have max repair, and you're almost indestructible, and you're all running around in a big blob of tanks, healing yourselves faster than anyone can damage you, and it becomes a different.
So there's
game.
already balance problems in the beta, you think, or?
Oh, of course. Yeah. It's like it's a beta, so there are going to be balance problems. I mean, the beta exists to fix those.
The dice smack of it's already out is such horse crap. It's totally not out. It's not ready. It's definitely
like a soft launch, you know.
It's out for you and me insofar as we can go home and play it. And the same as like we get in with our friends. What are we going to do tonight? Let's play some Battlefield. I mean, it's out for that, but it's not for.
But I wouldn't say that it's out. It's definitely still a beta piece of software. Like you said, the friends list stuff isn't in there. The achievements. So what's cool about a couple of things that are really cool about the game. The first is you start off through a web page and you have your character, and so it has like this very sort of MMO style character, paper doll character management thing where there's tons of ways to customize your character, both like in the outfits that they wear and the weapons that they carry, and then like you were talking about having repair. So there's all these different there's like power ups that you can get, and then as you gain levels in the game, you can go back and tweak those powers by improving them. So like you can improve your like the soldier can. I've been playing soldier. He can do.
You're going to learn to quit that soon.
Yeah.
Right now, the God class is gunner and commando.
Yeah, there are any soldiers, and I tend to get pretty much killed. But it's awesome because I can heal.
Right, and you can max out that and heal your entire posse. So if you're running around in a squad with people, you press like the F key or whatever you decide to bind it to, and everyone gets a healing boost as though you were like a monk in an MMO or something.
I think that's really smart. MMO trappings. Like everyone loves Warcraft. And this is free, and
flaming bullets is cool.
Yeah, it is
flaming bullet. Like, so there's a power up that you can get for your. So it's it's obviously not super serious when you have flaming bullets. But
that was in Alone in the Dark too.
Flaming bullets.
How do you?
That game was super serious.
How do you deal with the taunting in there? That was interesting for me because we went from the era of like the whole notion of teabagging originated from players creating a way to gloat over other players. And then what happened is like, SOCOM was the difference too. And the original SOCOM came out, there were no preset taunts. So what you do is you lean left and right and you do that like swaying dance. And for some reason, that was a better and more sincere taunt for me than in like subsequent, in later sequels when they like, you just had a button to taunt. And I don't know, this game's got tons of them. You have 9 at a time. So you have them all set up, and you can choose according to the
different
moment.
dances and offensive gestures.
You can press Q, and it opens up like this little checkerboard of 9 different taunts. You just click on it.
And for me, everyone does them every time they get killed. If they're in a tank, they'll get out of the tank and do it so you can see them because you got that death cam of the person who killed you. And I don't know, man. Like, how do you? I'll let you tell me.
Kind of like me, it totally marginalized them. They don't mean shit to me anymore.
It's kind of like another MMO thing where like you have tons of gestures and stuff in Warcraft that you can.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, it is. It's much more like that. It's actually like that because a lot of the stuff they have in there is like wiping your forehead or waving at people,
doing the robot,
it's like
dancing.
Yeah,
it's
some weird
very
shit.
MMO.
But as far as the taunt thing go, like, dude, like you were saying about swaying left and right, I totally feel you because you were actually doing something. You weren't just like pressing a button.
I think you guys are having faux nostalgia for the way taunts used to be before.
Dude, that shit was
before
legit.
They were so commercialized.
Yeah, it was an art form
back when it meant something.
Well, it's like
now it's a fucking shadow on the wall.
It's like the difference between when you flipped your teacher off in school and then when you went to Hot Topic and bought a shirt with the middle finger on it that said "Fuck the world, folks."
That's exactly it.
These are the Hot Topic taunts.
The other part that's like cool is how it doesn't take itself too seriously. It's like not only the characters look cool, but like for instance, the airplanes. You can like put 2 guys on the wings of the airplanes, so you can like have guys riding on the wings of the airplanes with like.
That's fanciful.
That comes just a bit of history, and maybe I can be an elitist in this. That comes from an actual habit from the original Battlefield games from '42, and wing walking. Except they didn't build the game anticipating. Players instead decided, let's jump on the wing and crawl and be very careful. And if the pilot keeps the plane level, maybe we can stay on. And it turned out to be fantastic. So if you start on a map where there are all these key airfields that you want to go take or something like that, and you start off and you each only have one plane, you throw everyone on the back of your plane and you fly over there, and then suddenly you've got a full squad there to fight their one dude who jumps out of his plane and tries to take the cap point.
Oh, shit.
And again, the difference is now you go up and press E and you just sit on the wing and everyone can do it, as opposed to before, like someone would see you doing it and they'd be like, holy shit, did you see those fuckers? And it would be fun, too, because if you'd shoot them or you'd see one of them fall off the wing or slide off the wing or you'd ram them or something, I mean, I'm glad it's there, but I mean, I do miss that. I mean, part of the fun. Same thing too.
This is not a super hardcore game.
Parachuting out of an explosion. So a tank shell hits you. Originally in Battlefield, people figured out, well, why don't I just parachute before I hit the ground and eat shit? And then they eventually patched that out because they're like, we didn't intend for that. But now they went back and built this game in the way that kind of players did in the first place. That's how
you can rocket jump in this game, rocket jump and then parachute over stuff. Like it's kind of crazy combinations like that. I think it's fun. I don't think it's super serious. My only question is,
I disagree. I think it's serious.
Do you?
Yeah. When you were playing, did you not get angry when you lost? Did you not feel?
Dude, I always get angry when I get so fucking pissed.
So how is it not serious then?
I don't.
You mean serious in tone?
Yeah, but serious in tone.
It's not like Call of Duty.
And I don't
serious?
think it's. Do you think it's going to attract the same like tournament clan hardcore sort of audience that the Battlefield series has?
I don't see why. Well, I mean, there's the one level where there's the military side. There's people that like relatively, accurate. Even if the warfare itself isn't realistic, you're like, I recognize that's an F-16. I recognize that this is a Cobra helicopter, and that matters for a lot of people. I mean, when you're for the same people that might watch on video like an Apache kill video, and then when they go and they sit in the gunner seat of an Apache in the expansion for Battlefield 2, and they've got like a relatively comparable experience visually where there's like a staticky, black and white view. Oh shit, it's my phone. Sorry. That matters I think that matters for some group of people, but for the people that just play it and the way that they play it, I mean, all the mindset that I bring as like a longtime Battlefield player and stuff totally carries over.
I was just going to say, can you make a parallel with the Quake Live stuff or like hardcore just flock to that?
Yeah,
I think that it's a new Battlefield game. If you like Battlefield, it's like I don't imagine. Some people will go. There's always going to be someone that's like, yeah, it's kiddie or whatever, but you still have fun. You're like, it's still Battlefield. It's another way to play it. And another thing to point out is that it's third person. That seemed like that was going to be the biggest thing in the world, but I noticed you didn't bring it up, and when I was talking about it after I first played, I didn't bring it up either. And it was afterward, I'm like, you know what? That's weird. That means it works.
You're right. It totally does. I didn't even notice. I didn't even think about it till you just said that. I didn't even think.
The whole time you're playing, you're not like, this is third person. I mean, that's like testament right there.
Like, I think people that would have been turned off by the graphics or the third person or the fact that it's free. I mean, the fact that it is free means that even if they are turned off by it, they didn't invest anything in trying it. And like, I think a lot of people will try it who wouldn't have otherwise.
So let me try to make the point Let me try my point from a different approach. I think the other side of the coin is what I'm thinking of, the people who be turned on by the graphics because it's like has these cartoon graphics, because it's very approachable, because you get into it through a web interface, because it has all these character development and customization options that make it feel like very personal. I think those people could potentially really come to this game. And for the really more serious Battlefield player, I look at this game and I'm like, well, why would I play this instead of the serious Battlefield?
Right.
The one that I can go up to 64 players, the one where I know that like these guys are all the serious clan players.
Everyone, if you do that now, you're going to get your ass whooped hard. If you go into if you just go and pick up at Best Buy Battlefield 2 right now, you're going to have a pretty wretched experience with it.
Right. So I'm thinking this is going to segregate that.
Yeah, and I think I think it's good in that respect. I mean, it's already segregated. The people that are still playing the previous Battlefields are the ones that have been playing it since it came out, right?
Right.
And I think some of those people will still try Heroes, but what if the options is new people? They don't try that other one at all, or they try something new. So, I mean, it's in that respect that I think it's good for them. The other things, they're going to be adding they say they're going to be adding content. If they're smart, they're going to do it at the pace that Valve has done with Team Fortress 2 or even more frequently. And there's an enormous amount of material to work with there because it seems like it's based on World War II because of the tanks and the planes that they have. They're based on Shermans, Spitfires, BF-109s. But if you look at the character customization shit, there's a lot of stuff from First World War, from other
crazy
things.
Stuff in there.
So they can do, if it's like Metal Slug, the multiplayer FPS, they can do futuristic shit. They can put in like horses and carriages with rockets. They could really just keep putting as much shit in there as they want. And that's the key, is because the model's so different. They're going to be making money off our eyes remaining on their advertising screens and whatever else over time.
Well, they're going to
have every reason to keep doing that
too, right?
They are, yeah. I mean, that's what we're waiting to see. They keep promising it's convenience items, by which they mean items that are, they're helpful, but you don't need them in order to compete.
Not like that day one advantage nonsense.
Right, exactly. So, yeah, I mean, I think it can just only get better from here and more balanced, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. I kind of think that before they come out of beta, they need more than 2 maps, right? What do you think? I mean, it's free. I realize it's free. That doesn't change the fact that once you pull people into it, if you want it to be successful, you got to keep them. And two maps.
2 is pretty scant. I can see 4 maybe. I don't know.
Yeah,
or what if they have a bunch though when they start releasing them? Like every 2 weeks, there's a new map or something. I mean, that's another
that could work too.
Cool way.
Is there a map editor? No, there's not.
No, there's not. But I don't think.
No, but I mean, yeah, maybe they'll release those tools, the SDK, so that people can create content. That seems like another wise decision, right? Yep. Anything you can do to just add value to the thing, so people keep playing it. And I know that's a hot topic for a lot of people, but especially console and PC is how do you keep people playing your games? Because when they continue to play your games, even outside of circumstances like Battlefield where you're getting it for free, what about a console thing? They're not reselling it. And when you resell a game, you lose a fucking lot of money on that.
Today, a huge reason to replay an old console game came out, and that's the Bikes patch for Burnout, which is, I've been excited about this for months. I know you're excited about it.
Absolutely, dude. We're going to move on from Heroes, I guess.
I mean, I'm just saying, as an example of EA again, who's releasing this huge patch for free that adds motorcycles to Burnout, and that's and a bunch of new event types too.
And why they do that, right? Because
so you don't sell the game back.
Yeah, you're not selling that game back, and that means if someone,
I mean, they're taking the Epic Games approach. They're taking the old Unreal Tournament approach, which is just keep feeding content into the game, and you keep building more people to buy the game because they're going to bring it out as a digitally distributed product in the fall. Do we know when that's going to happen? I don't. It's November, right?
Yeah,
something like November. Anyway. I installed the patch. We haven't had a chance to play the bikes yet because it's Thursday afternoon. We're both at work.
One of my friends was playing him today. He said it's awesome, so I'm going to run home.
Surprise. And you also get day-night cycle.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They've done so much to improve the game. I was impressed because I hadn't played it since the new dashboard had downloaded.
It's a lot better. It really is.
Just the front end, the way they put in that sort of it kind of takes some of tips from the Gran Turismo prologue, right? Where it has a
news feed.
Has a news feed. It shows you different cities and their weather and all that kind of stuff.
What's on the news feed?
Feed from their RSS feed off of Criterion.com.
So like Burnout-related news?
Yeah.
Burnout-related news. It tells you like when they have a new one of their video podcasts up. You ever watch their video podcast?
No, I heard it's good, though.
It's good stuff, actually.
Yeah, let me ask about that real quick. What exactly is on it? No, I'm just curious, like what they're doing, because I mean this comes up a lot, right? I mean, how you see a lot of things like developer blogs and internal things like that. And I'm just curious if it's like, does it seem legit? Does it strike you as legit, or is it just like very obviously a promotional tool?
It's not very obviously a promotional tool. It's not at all very. But I mean, if you know the dudes at Criterion, and like if you play Burnout, you know obviously how seriously they're into their game, and I think that comes across in the game, and you could misinterpret that, but they have a good time with it. Like the last one talked a bunch about the bikes, and yeah. On the one hand, you could say, oh, it's just an infomercial because they're going through all the features of the bikes and stuff. But at the same time, it's a video by a game developer on a game developer's site intended to be consumed by the people who are big fans of the game and want all the info.
It's selling, but it comes from a genuine place.
Well, it's the difference. Yeah. It's like, it's going, if they're doing that, it's going to be promotional, right? But the difference is if it's like, hey guys, we're making this game better than ever. We've got new bikes coming at you each week. Or if there's a guy and he's like, maybe he's got a little bit of doubt and he's like, someone maybe didn't think this was the best idea. The rest of us did. It turned out great. Like, what do you think about it? I mean, it turned out we're happy with it. What do you think?
Last time I logged on, it was, a week and a half ago, and the bikes weren't ready, and they were late. And there was actually kind of an apology. It was like, oh, we really wanted to have the bikes ready by now. And, and it was like, oh, I feel like they're really talking to me, and they care about me.
Yeah, I mean, and especially the video podcasts don't come as often. If you just go to their website, dude, they do not hold back with information dump. I mean, they're not like one of these developers that like carefully meets out each little dollop of information. They're like, here's 10 tons of information on what's coming.
I mean, they promise a lot. The whole planes thing, they're saying now planes might not happen because they kind of break the game. Because before they'd promise planes
in
as well.
Burnout.
Yeah. Which isn't that crazy, right?
That would be cool. Like just like aerobatic, flying around while people are racing below you.
They're trying to do it. So
first thing you're going to do is crash into
it. Right. But if that happens,
could you see the Red Bull racing like the acrobatic team or whatever?
Sweet.
Like,
dude,
it's out over the water. Like, dude, driving on a bay, much like our own here.
If by January they have planes, I'll be all about it. Like, I'll be crashing planes out into people.
Flying planes in games is really fun. So I think
just for griefing possibilities online, like, I mean, that's
just for griefing possibilities.
Bouncing through the street.
I also had forgotten how damn good the game looks. So I can't wait to get, I'm going to LA over the weekend, but I can't wait to get back so I can get the bikes, because definitely for next week we want to talk about the bikes.
Yeah, I haven't played Burnout since the review, like way back when, so I'm going to get my copy finally and start playing over the weekend again.
Shane's dream, this is also a segue, that this in the tradition where you always got to announce when you're making one, is like if they connect MotorStorm with Burnout, so that if you drive out of the city into the hills, it turns off. Suddenly it's like, then Shane's up there cooling off his four-wheeler by driving under a waterfall.
Dude, it's been Redneck Central in my office these last few days.
I've witnessed it though, and you have got a knack for flying right off of cliffs.
That's my skill.
He's also pretty good at hopping into lava puddles.
Well, we came by. It was one of those moments where, how like anytime someone comes by to watch you play a game, it's like you're meeting on stage and you're like, oh God, hopefully this is like good runs.
I can always tell someone
you were having a hard time,
dude.
Man.
I can always tell someone standing behind me, and then I get performance anxiety.
Yeah,
I've been doing really well in my.
Happens to me too.
We're segueing now
Shooting
to
porno for the past 5 years has cured me of that problem.
I guess we're segueing to my MotorStorm 2 Pacific Rift excitement.
Hit it.
I mean, John was on here last week talking about it, and since then I got the review build. I've been playing it hardcore. I'm probably through about a third of the game now, and it fixes everything I wanted from the first game. Everything. Anything you thought was wrong with the first game?
What was wrong with the first game?
What are these everythings? There wasn't that much really wrong. There's just an off-road racer. Way more variety.
So much more variety. And not just like, vehicle variety. They added 2 new vehicle classes, but the different vehicles control more differently. And there's a huge difference now between the light vehicles and the big vehicles, because I prefer the light ones, and I get my ass kicked because I'll just get run over. Like, invariably, a monster truck comes and just destroys me. So the races where you can only crash 3 or 4 times are really, really hard for me playing those light vehicles. And the different paths you can take now are much more distinct. A lot of ones will be really low-hanging, so only ATVs can even go under them. Or you'll see like really high ones, like deep mud, deep water. And the courses, I mean, you've seen some of them. They're just... They went really overboard with like the vistas. Like you'll be on this...
How does that work when you're making that from a because from a single-player point of view, you can always cheat with rubber banding or something.
Right.
But say you're making it's a multiplayer. It's supposed to be fair. It's supposed to be fair for the guy in the monster truck, for the guy in the dirt bike, and you've got a different route you can take.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you just run it over and over again and look at the metrics.
It's what makes the level design
That's exactly what you do,
It's
right?
really what makes the level design so amazing. And like MotorStorm's levels, I mean, you think about them, they're kind of like 4 or 5 tracks in one track. And because you'll play it multiple times and you'll find new pathways you didn't even know existed. Like, especially in this game, in some of the jungle tracks, like, you'll be like in pure jungle, like looking for the tiny little like arrows to show you where you're going.
You see fucking young Indiana Jones like swing by.
Seriously. And
faster than your bike.
well, and one of the big complaints on MotorStorm was that it was like the brownest game ever because it all took place in this Mesa Canyon like desert area. So this one
it's definitely not brown.
This one they separate into 4 elements. So there's the air, water, earth, and fire levels. They all look very different,
Well, so what I'm going to say is that I am amazed at how far, like we always talk about this in terms of just in previewing games in general, how much of the final visual polish comes in like the final stages of developing a game. Because when I saw this at E3,
it looked rough.
It looked rough.
Well, even the core demo is in really old build, and it looks kind of rough.
It looks a lot better in your office than it did at E3.
Holy shit.
It got a last pass that really helped it out. I mean,
it got more than a pass. It got set, but that's just it. It's
there's still a little. Once in a while, you'll see something like you'll see a little bit of pop up, or you'll see like one bad texture, or you'll see like a 2-dimensional person like in some side area that you didn't expect to see. But
like I don't know how well. I mean, I'm sure you're picking up on them, but you're playing like just standing there as an observer. 2 things really, really impressed me. Number one, the lighting. The lighting is amazing.
Well, especially in some of the levels where it'll be like sunrise or sunset. I mean, these super long shadows coming across, and it all looks correct.
The coloration differences that it makes between as the sun gets later in the day, it has like I guess a warmer, richer, redder color.
Right.
You can really sense that. The way the light and shadow plays through all that foliage is really impressive. And then the second thing is a lot of the visual effects that they're doing. Like one of them I don't like, the camera jitter thing.
The jitter thing?
The camera jitter thing really
the first time you
throws me
walk
off.
by, you're like, what's wrong with the frame rate? Like, no, it's like a jitter thing. It's when you're boosting, like it all kind of jitters.
That sounds disconcerting.
I don't really
Is that like burnout boost jittering?
Kind of.
Like...
For me, when I'm playing it, it's effective because it's very jarring, and like the rumble's really good too.
Yeah, so you said it matched the rumble.
Yeah, like so the jitter kind of matches the rumble.
But if you're just watching, it's weird. It's like someone like after 3 or 4 Red Bulls is holding the television.
In first person, that sounds like it makes sense, right?
It is in first person.
Well, but the problem is
trying to communicate.
If you're playing ATV or bike, there is no true first person, so it's like this really close third view. I think that's what you saw, and it's a little more.
Yeah, you were playing.
It's a little weirder if you're from the ATVs.
Need for Speed's done that to different extents, and like when they introduced the drag racing modes, and I mean it's different there because you're changing lanes like slot cars, and stuff. But
I mean, as a pure arcade racer,
have you noticed the other one? I would say the good side though, smoke. First of all, everyone's doing great smoke. So I won't draw attention to that.
Water, ash. The ash that's in the air in the volcano levels looks awesome.
Have you noticed like the heat wave distortion off of the lava pools?
Yeah.
Dude, that's some hot shit right there.
Yeah.
Like it's that really like they didn't overdo the shimmer. It's just like you can just sort of notice like a little bit of waviness to the.
As good as the graphics are, for me, it really is about the gameplay, the boost mechanic. Now that you can cool off the boost by going through water, that adds a new strategy to it, and just there's so much verticality. Like a lot of these levels, you'll climb really, really, really high up, and then there'll be a succession of huge jumps. And when you make one of those colossal jumps and you have air control, and you're landing it to hit some other shortcut, and when you hit the ground, all the sound like goes away, and
the vertical thing is cool. It's pretty promising too. I mean, I was always a big Phil
Fish fan.
I got actually that was a weird verbal slip because I was about to say downhill domination, and I got into the H of the downhill.
Downhill domination is not bad.
I think that was a fun game.
It was not
and
bad.
Just the sense of just ripping full speed down these hills and not knowing that you can't hit the brakes. You have to find some route through.
Right.
But I like that. Well, what about you said there's like bystanders, but they're like 2D standees, like at a fucking
I missed that
shoe
part.
store.
Sometimes they're 3D, but like sometimes in levels, I mean, you can look around you and like you'll look at a part of the level that you're not really supposed to look at, and they'll be like from this angle you weren't supposed to look at these.
Dudes walking by with the Sarah Palin cutout.
Basically.
The only reason that would matter is because of course, it's not necessarily a rally game, but of course, bystanders in rally racing games aren't the same as people sitting in a NASCAR Superdrome. I mean, they get run the fuck over at times. So
in the world of MotorStorm, these are presumably like Burning Man hippies who've come to watch you race.
So can you run them over, or like
no, you can't
hide behind trees?
They're always off the track. Actually,
like not that you try, but you know how it is. I mean, we've all seen clips of rally disasters.
Oh, I try.
You should make it your own game. That's
Well,
emergence.
There you go, right there.
that's
Make
true.
him, yeah.
But I gotta say, I'm pretty enamored with this.
The cooling thing is really cool. I watched him as playing one level that was in a lot of lava fields, and he was trying to keep on the boost because you were at a high level, so you were having to boost a ton. And there was a route that he could take if he got off a jump the right direction. He could head through. It was almost like a car wash sort of thing. That was like a cooling station to get him back on the boost. That's
and you
pretty
piss
cool.
on your bike on your own.
Oh, there you go.
I
See?
wish.
Get that extra like you just keep that boost going.
Yeah, I wish. But I still haven't played in the online. I want to get on with John. I'm going to kick some ass.
Sweet.
I'm all about
You
it.
think you could? John has got a reputation for being a racing game.
He is
fanatic.
He's a
You think
real
you're gonna kick
racer.
some ass?
I'd like to try. I think I'm pretty good at MotorStorm because like at first it seemed really easy to me, and I was worried that it was too easy. But like all my old MotorStorm skills carried over. So just now I got to the third tier.
Let's not forget though when you went off the cliff 3 times in a row when I was watching.
That's true. Well,
That was a hard track though. That was a hard
and there's
track.
a lot of high risk. Like twice I've won because like as you're barreling towards the finish line, and the AI is so aggressive, and then like the fucking knock into you, like you can blow yourself up by boosting too much. If you boost too much, you blow up. But when you blow up, it propels you forward. So if you're in like a neck to neck race, blow yourself up
And get through the line.
You get through the. That's happened twice. I've won like as my flaming wreckage propels itself across the finish line.
What was
awesome.
It was F-Zero for GameCube where if you fell off the track, that was it. You lost.
Dude, F-Zero for
and it was
GameCube
over.
was brutal. It was.
Was it one death?
I think so.
I
You,
think
you
it might
fell
have
off
been.
all the time.
Yeah.
But I was just imagining like for some reason
F-Zero
I thought of that
GX.
courses where you can fall off. But I mean,
love
Well,
that game.
the other weird thing about MotorStorm is, in a lot of instances, it's actually better to crash than to not crash because there's only like a 3-second penalty for crashing.
Oh, because you lose so much time.
And you start
otherwise.
with your boost all the way down. So there have been times where I crash, come back on the track, boost, and I'm further than I was. Or if you
by down you mean they're all cooled off. You
Right.
can max boost.
or
that can be bad, man. There was this other game. What was the Xbox One? It was another like off-road endurance race, and you can exploit it. And everyone ended up exploiting online because they figured out that if you crashed here, it would auto respawn you. Like you basically like thwarted like the computer's ability to put you where you ought to have been, and it jumped you ahead a quarter of a mile.
Yeah.
And then so that became the new track. By default, everyone would crash at the same spot because they know you would be put
this
up.
always puts you back, so it's not going to help you that much. But there is another option. If you're off course, you can press select to put you back on course. And like usually you have to wait for it to tell you that, but you can kind of get 1 second ahead of it and like get yourself back on track. So there's little things you can do to cheat.
Shane,
Nice.
did you like the Flat Out series?
I was a fan of the Flat Out the mini games. I think the game proper is decent, but I like the bowling and actually I haven't even tried that mode. There's a new mode here, and they're called like I forget what they're called, like recreational, like WRECK recreational activities. I think it's kind of like that. I haven't tried it yet.
Naturally.
Yeah.
I never even played the
Flat Out.
Flat Out.
The
Only thing I played was darts.
Dude, the Flat Out
all I
mini
played in Flat Out was darts.
the Flat Out
Had
mini games
some
are fun,
issues.
and they're really popular with rednecks.
There you go, man. You know that shit. Texas,
Yeah, so-
what's your nickname?
so-
Cooter? Is that your,
I don't accept that nickname.
you don't like
So
that?
what else have you been playing?
Well, we should finish you two first.
I'm finished, dude. Battlefield Hero. I seriously
That's all? That's
I
all?
got Battlefield Heroes and was into it, and because of the character leveling system, I actually wanted to play it more and more. So I just kept playing that, and then I did the Burnout Paradise, and then I got Yakuza 2, but I haven't touched it enough to really say anything. Yakuza 2 upcoming.
It's awesome.
I've got a bunch of excuses, but then we'll go into like pre-impressions of games we bought but haven't played.
Well, I've got one more. I've got one more to talk about, and Skip and I can both talk about it. But we should,
do you want to do it then? Or
Yeah, do it.
well, Skip got to try a little game called Africa. I brought it over.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm a fan. I'm still. Yeah, you gotta bless the rains way down in Africa. Like, I thought I would like it, and I do like it.
Did you like Pokemon Snap?
I liked Pokemon Snap.
Is
and
that what it is?
It's basically Pokemon.
Andrew's like, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically Pokemon Snap, except you're Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie on an African safari.
He was Brad. I was Angelina.
Yeah.
We had a wonderful
how
safari.
long before someone makes the adopted babies joke?
There's no babies to take pictures of yet, except for baby gazelles and zebras and the ilk. But
cute.
it's pretty simple as
Does the
expected.
lion recognize you when you go back?
I haven't met any lions yet. I mean, but
I've seen that
as you
video.
expect, like
Lions are level 4.
you get assignments, and the assignment is like, hey, take a picture of a zebra drinking water, or take a picture of a mama gazelle and her baby gazelles, and you go out into the savannah and you go take pictures, and it's surprisingly like addictive and engaging. And the graphics are good enough to where you kind of feel like you're really there, and the animal behaviors are realistic enough to where you get caught up in it, and like you.
So does that mean there's like, because I was going to say if there's an element of surprise or any peril?
Well,
so like if you combine those two,
right? So my best story was like in like the third or fourth mission I was on. I went and got some awesome pictures, like great pictures that you can go back and I can win a bunch of points for these. And on the way back to my Jeep, I get there, I'm all so excited, and there's a fucking zebra, this pissed off zebra in front of my Jeep. I'm like, "What's that, zebra?" And like it switches to this mode, this
Zebras
screen.
are infamously aggressive.
Right, so it switches to the screen where the zebra's like looking at me all angry, and it's like this red like light comes up. I'm like, what's going on? The zebra starts running towards me. I'm like, what the fuck? So I'm like trying to get out of the way, and the zebra like mauls me. And you wake up back at the camp, and the zebra like took all your film, like knocked the film out of your camera. So I lost all of those pictures.
That's cool. Yeah.
But then the same thing was it's a hippo with you, right?
A hippo got me.
Well, he walked right up to these hippos who were like drinking water.
Because you said, "Oh, I walked up to a hippo, and it was fine. I stood right in front of them.
He just
They're
kept drinking.
surprisingly peaceful." No, they're not. They're dicks.
Hippos, dicks.
Hippos is the most lethal large mammal in all of Africa.
Yep.
Skip found out the hard way.
But
Did he terminate your shit?
He did.
Damn.
The same thing happened to me. But I got an awesome zebra picture that Shane didn't get. So.
Well, and the other great thing is his zebra picture was fantastic. And the 5.1 audio, it's pretty creepy because as you're trying to get away from the animals, like we heard the hooves of these gazelles or something like chasing us.
It's pretty funny. It's not mixed very well because like the animal could be like 20 yards away from you, and the hooves would like feel like it's right behind you, and you're like, oh shit, but you spin around, it's like way off in the distance. But it's
scary.
Yeah.
All
I don't
right.
know. It's
sounds like you need a link to your Flickr account with it.
I want to care. I'm curious.
I think you would like it because you like nature.
Does sound cool.
You like nature.
And if there's like surprising shit, like I mean, if it's got baboons, they're notorious for like really interesting behavior. Like
I saw a monkey
playing with each
there was a
other
little monkey at one point.
Shane, did you come across any like upgraded camera stuff yet?
You have this. It's really expensive. Yeah,
Is it?
you have to. Could you start with a really simple camera?
It's a shitty camera.
Like a shitty camera?
No, like really little zoom and
Right, and everything's automatic. So eventually you get you can control the f-stop and like do all the really complex photography stuff eventually.
I mean, that seems cool too. Just if you're like taking pride in your compositions and stuff,
Well, and it grades
trying to recreate famous National Geographic cover stories.
Yeah, and it grades your photos based on like.
Wait, they're gonna be boobs, like tribal boobs.
I haven't seen that yet, but yeah, it grades you on.
That's all Garnet remembers.
There's several criteria for your photos.
His introduction to females.
National Geographic at the school library.
Yeah, I'm solo on that one, right? Of course. No one got it.
Indigenous women and
No, we all check that out, man. But let's say you didn't get it for free and you weren't playing it because you intended to speak about it in the public space.
I purchased this game with my own money. It cost me $60.
And
I'm completely satisfied.
Continue to play with it.
I'm completely satisfied with my purchase. I don't think it's like a 10 or an A+, but I think it's entertaining and unique and fun and relaxing in a weird way, and just very, very interesting. And I'm glad I bought it. So there you go.
Soon to be joined by the underwater version.
Oh yeah, I'm all about Aquanauts Holiday, man. It's slightly more exciting.
I was going to say the underwater version of Aquanauts Holiday that's a series that's been kind of cool actually.
Yeah.
So
and I'm surprised we were discussing there's no Pokemon Snap sequel.
We're saying
they dropped the ball big.
Yeah,
on
with
that.
Wii and DS, it's like so obvious they could do this.
There's
easily.
like 800 Pokemon or something.
Seriously.
What was the Sega successor to Crazy Taxi? It was arcade only.
Jumbo Safari.
Yeah, you ran
you're like
around
harness a giraffe.
Yeah, it'll tell you like the species you need to get.
Well, I totally missed that.
And the arcade it was rad because it had the pace of Crazy Taxi, but you're chasing animals, and it might be like you need to get giraffe, and then it had like this lasso lever on the arcade thing, and you'd whip that shit, and you'd get it, and then you'd have to like jerk on it so you don't break the line. It was almost like fishing, but for giraffe, and you're still driving, trying not to hit rocks and trees and fucking rhinos in the way.
Awesome.
It was totally
Jumbo
fun.
Safari.
When that came out, I played it at GameWorks in Seattle, and I was a big fan of Crazy Taxi, and I wanted it for Dreamcast, and I never understood why they
could
didn't
do it for
release
Wii. I think that's plausible.
Yeah, controller would work.
But that reminds me too. Africa reminded us that we want a Jurassic Park game, much like Africa.
The soundtrack is like 97% John Williams score for Jurassic Park. As you're driving through the beautiful
like
outdoors,
no matter what, it's like a fucking baboon throwing feces.
But but seriously, like this exact engine as Jurassic Park would be
awesome.
Perfect. Yeah.
There's a lot of room for that kind of game. It would be cool
Did you
to
get
see what
meerkats?
I haven't seen him yet.
Oh,
before they do the underwater though, since that's been done, it might be cool to do like rainforest or something though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, safari time.
I'm about it.
Safari time in San Francisco.
Yeah.
It just still cracks me
I
up.
also briefly,
Like, I can't believe we had a conversation that entailed
briefly,
zebras and hippos.
I should bring this up too. Rock Band 2, we've had that for a while.
Right,
but, the other day, on your day off, Mad Catz brought by all their premium shit, so we got to finally play with it.
Oh, yeah, the stuff that was in the case.
And the premium bass is amazing. Everyone is in love with the premium bass with the split strum bar.
Yeah, it's like
because you can play it like a real bass.
it's like $300, right?
No, these are the ones that are 80.
Oh, okay.
These are like the second level.
Did they
ones.
bring by the
there's-
smoke machine?
No, they brought by the high level guitar, the one that's like
The ones that is
made
$300.
by Fender. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty amazing. They brought by the $50 add-on cymbals for the Rock Band drums.
Cool.
And once you've played those drums, the problem is once we played with all these like the upgraded stuff, it's like, man, I don't want to play regular Rock Band ever again. It kind of spoiled me, and like now I kind of actually want.
They've found a way to keep coming back to your pocketbook over and over.
So I would say the cymbals are the number one thing to buy, and
Yeah, definitely.
the bass would be the number two thing to buy.
Really,
I think
the split finger thing. Really, but bass is so easy. The problem is, for me, bass is fairly easy to play.
It makes it easier because you can hit a lot more notes a lot more quickly.
That's not good though.
Yeah, you're making the easiest note track on the game easier to play.
Well, but I think it would make like the expert bass feel more like a
You're
real
gonna
bass.
get all these angry people that are like bass players writing in about what the fuck you know about Flea, what the fuck you know about Les Claypool. Like,
Well, and
I'm sure it'll happen. You're saying playing bass is easy. That's
like
gonna
the bass
work.
doesn't have a strum bar. It looks like a bass. Like when you plug it in, Rock Band knows it's always a bass. Always.
In the game, playing bass is
Yeah.
easier generally.
I don't know damn thing about playing electric bass, but in the game, the bass lines are typically pretty easy to play. And it's like, this is a problem. Do you remember, like, 3 years ago when we were first talking to them about Guitar Hero and they were talking about multiplayer and how hard it was for them to pick good games to do the two-line?
Yeah.
Because they couldn't find songs that had good bass lines. Like, one of the ones that immediately brought up was Van Halen. They're like, yeah, like Van Halen, not really that many great bass songs for us to do co-op with.
Yeah.
So...
just playing the same three notes all the time. Like if you're doing like they had like Mexican classic folk music on there, and it's just like boom, 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 rock that shit. I mean, I don't mean to just like single out like Mexican. It could be like polka, it could be whatever.
There are
there's
same
like-
repetitive stuff.
There are
like
a lot
a
of
big
songs that have like
tradition.
one bass line, like two notes over and over.
That's
again.
always felt bad for bass players. Imagine doing that for like 5 minutes straight if it's some epic song, or even just 3 minutes for most.
All right. So
So
do some
I do want to, before we get to
preview
news,
shit? Yeah,
I
sure.
bought The Price is Right for Wii, and I haven't had time to play it. It's been sitting there. I also bought Kabuki. But I'm waiting for Melissa to come over next week.
I want full hands-on Plinko impressions. I'm
gonna give it
not
to you.
kidding.
When that game seems like such a brilliant idea. As soon as I saw the box, the Ubisoft published, I'm like, because I was wondering, I'm always playing Smarty Pants over and over again to the point where I'm like, God, why don't people realize how fucking good, how perfectly suited this platform is for these kind of games, and how people eat them up. You know, Melissa is always asked to borrow the Wii, takes it to her family, dad, mom, cousins. They all play Smarty Pants and stuff, and everyone knows Price is Right, and it's a perfect scenario. You're sitting there, you got 4 controllers, they show you some item in 3D, you put your bid in. You get to spin that fucking wheel.
I think that the bidding part might be kind of lame. I'm worried that there's not going to be enough items, or like how they do it, or
right. Well, if they just use pictures, they could probably put a whole bunch of stuff in there. If they had to model stuff, then it would get. I'm thinking that.
Or do they even have
probably
they have real licensed items? I hope they do. If they don't, if they have like fake made up items, like here's some poop, poop,
yeah,
like
creamed corn.
Well, why
Yeah,
wouldn't they? It's
I don't know.
advertising, like you would think. No,
That'd
we
be
don't want you using Desenex baby diaper ointment in your video game.
Also, it could be really economically dependent too. If we go like into a period of inflation, imagine like a year from now, you're like
the way shit's going now. Yeah, 2 years. Who knows?
needs downloadable content. Needs to have all the stuff in there.
$5 for a candy bar. That shit's $120 now. 2 years from now.
gallon of gas. That's $9,000.
With the $1 bid always works.
You know what game is amazing for Wii? It's coming out. It's Hasbro Family Game Night. It is my favorite game for Wii. I love it.
What's it called?
Hasbro Family Game
That's
Night.
the name of it?
Yeah, it has.
That sounds
It's
good.
like Connect 4, Boggle, Battleship, Sorry, and a new game called Sorry Sliders, which is perfect for Wii.
I'm going to end up getting that, I'm sure
and
then.
it's awesome.
As long as I do something with it, so it's like Sorry Slider sounds like exactly what I mean.
Sorry Sliders uses
Give
Wii.
you some kind of...
Yeah, like Sorry Sliders kind of feels like Boom Blocks meets Sorry meets something else, and trust me. It's
All right, so yours was Plinko. What's your favorite Price is Right game?
Plinko, definitely.
Plinko.
That or the climbing up the mountain one.
Dude, the
That's
mountain
in
climber.
there,
That's
too.
what
That's in there,
yeah,
too.
Yodelay-ho,
Yeah.
yodelay-ho. You're like, oh no, he's gonna fall over the. Oh.
And I'm also curious how good the motion control for spinning the big wheel is going to be. I hope it's
Motion Plus.
I'm sure it's gonna. I'm sure it's
yeah,
gonna work fine.
Motion
And what
Plus.
about? I wonder if it's true. Like, I'll report back on this next week if it's true to the show, where it's like one of the showcases is always shitty, and like you've got to be like visibly bummed when like you didn't get the first pick, or like you're sitting there wringing your hands and they're showing you, it's like that.
Yours
Always
doesn't have the car
one of
and the boat and the
showcases
trip to
is
Venice.
butt.
Then you should
Or
pass
when
it.
like the college kids get like the new dining room.
Yeah. New carpeting, a fireplace. Like,
hey, hardwood backgammon
can I
table.
get a fucking week?
And
in,
like the old lady gets
Bangkok?
like the pair of ATVs
box
or
of
something.
rubbers.
Right, exactly. You've got new jet skis and a car to tow them with.
Grandma gets that shit. So that's our signal for news.
All right, yeah. Well, let's go on to the second segment. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about. No, that's right. We're going to talk about why do game journalists go and do game development? Stick around.
Why?
We'll be right back. All right, and now I must shamefully bring it back as I endure the
It's
withering
okay.
glare of Andrew.
I'm not on the show all that
He was
going
gonna
to
talk about a
easily,
game.
Easily forgettable. And I actually
You are
played
not
a
easily
game.
forgettable. I apologize.
What game are you talking about?
I apologize. I apologize.
I am a professional hockey player on my video game console.
Garnet
NHL 09 is awesome.
Garnet Lee doesn't care about white people.
Oh, okay.
What?
White people play hockey.
People play hockey.
Dude, people of multiple ethnicities play hockey.
3.
All right. Well, we're not even going to go down that road. Tell me about it. NHL.
He's
When
like
I saw
just-
it was awesome.
He's all
because-
into tribal mams and National
with the extended necks and the elongated earlobes. That's what gets Garnet all hot and bothered.
Dude, you know how pop culture is. The earlobe thing came over. Who knows what's next?
So,
Yes.
yeah, really briefly, NHL 09.
Is that with the online DNA or whatever?
It's online. I don't know what the name of it is yet because I haven't.
DNA is in live.
Oh, this is the one where you can play one position.
One position, be a pro. And for me, like back in college, I thought how awesome it might be to like be a wide receiver and just a wide receiver in a football game, or just be the shortstop in a baseball game. So I've always been kind of
just be the
attuned.
catcher.
Yeah, just like
I'm joking
Well, no,
about that.
just like maybe I don't know. Have like a catcher.
Dude, just be left field. I'd be
If
like,
they could make it work. And then when I played FIFA about a year and a half ago, they had like it was one of the first games, probably not the first, but one of the first, where you could just lock yourself into a position and play it. And that was the first time I've ever played a soccer game where it reminded me of like actually playing soccer in high school. Like, oh shit, I'm out of position. That goal is on me. Like that's my bad. And NHL, that's how I played NHL 08 exclusively. It had a position lock, but it didn't have like a full-fledged be a pro mode. So I would just play like right wing the
Didn't
entire time.
2K's fine family of sports games arrive at this solution first?
Probably,
Sorry, that was
actually.
a joke.
They very
But
well
I heard
could
that they did. I'm pipping the
I-
2K connection.
I believe they did with a first-person perspective.
Yeah, I mean, they probably did, but I wasn't playing hockey games until 08. That's what brought me back.
So yeah,
to
and they
it,
have Be a
so.
Pro in Madden too.
Yeah. But it's just the way I love playing sports games, and we
What
talked
about
about it on
the
Sports
keeper?
Anomaly a little bit. I haven't played goalkeeper. I tried playing goalkeeper in 08 for a game, and it was just jank to me. And like I didn't understand like why I was letting in goals or why I was making saves, so I just switched back to position. It wasn't that fun because you're spending most of your time like just shifting left or shifting right, and then hopefully hitting a button to make your
and waiting for
glove go
something
up.
to happen.
And waiting
too.
for something to happen. And
Even
that's why,
though it's like you're waiting for the most important part of the game happens with you, but it doesn't happen all that
and
often.
that's why like in FIFA, I think this year it's 10 on 10 like online where you can only play one position.
Right.
They're not doing the goalie this year because
Not fun.
no
Makes
one
sense.
would really play for it.
Right.
that
they
seems
say that-
pretty fucking cool. I have to admit,
Yeah.
it makes me interested. In
and I can't wait to start playing online, but it's really cool. I started like third line right wing on an AHL team, and I've already worked my way up to the Flyers, and I'm on the second wing, and we're 4-0 since calling me up, so pretty proud of that.
Are you playing with are you organizing a league or something where
Not yet.
This is my role and we're going to arrange a match every night?
Not yet. I want to look into it either on One Up Boards or Gaff or something, or like with Luke or Brian or something.
That seems cool. I
Sports
mean, you can
Anomaly.
organize it at a really accelerated rate too, where it's like you have you just say, let's just do this for 2 weeks and see how it is, and then we'll agree and we'll do it again like a month from now or something.
But you haven't really said much about the actual hockey out on the ice.
Well, it's about the same as 08, except they improved the body checking. Like last year, the body checking was like if you're kind of in the same area and if you're kind of like hit right on the stick, you'll do like a hip check, but it's kind of like a guided missile hip check, or like totally defies the physics of where
Voldo
you're
move?
going. Yeah, and it's like, well, that was kind of like a
cheap.
satisfying crunch, but it was like cheap, and it didn't make much sense. It's improved a lot this year.
How about the stick work? The stick work to me, playing it when I was trying it out, seemed like a big difference.
Really?
Yeah, because it just seemed like I had to keep the puck moving a lot more. I couldn't carry the puck for a long time.
They added a new guard the puck move while you're on offense. So if you hit A, you'll immediately do that like crouching a little bit and curving the stick to kind of like shield it from poke checks, which are still the most effective defensive.
But when you do that, you lose a lot of speed, right?
Yeah.
So
But it's the
you're
trade-off.
pretty vulnerable.
Yeah.
If you come up against a good defender, they're able to poke check the puck away from you still. So I found that I had to move the puck around a lot more. You not?
Well, that's hockey. That's the way you do it.
All right. So do you think it's emulating? How much better do you think it's emulating the game?
Well, it's hard to say because I've only played a few games in the pros and AHL. I don't know. It's been a long time since I've seen an AHL game. Like Milwaukee's team was AHL. The hockey there is just bad. Like people are slow. They lose the puck all the time. Goalies letting in easy shots.
Plain and simple, the hockey is bad.
Yeah, the first couple games in the NHL, the AI is definitely better, but they're still doing some dumb stuff like taking the puck out of the zone and then like passing it right back in immediately, creating an offsides that shouldn't have happened. And they're icing a lot that I've noticed too, when you shouldn't really do it. But I don't know, it's too early to tell.
All right, we'll expect more hockey diesels.
Shane, you could drive the Zamboni, huh?
That was my favorite part in Blades of Steel.
Driving the Zamboni. All right, so Sean, as we all know, it was not a punked joke. It was actually serious. He's going to work for Ken Levine.
Or is he?
Don't start that shit.
Start
Dude.
that shit again.
Don't start that shit again.
I
People
kind of
like,
regretted that with the way
It's
that
a long con.
unfolded last night online, but then I was like, yeah, that was totally appropriate because there were a couple times before where like I'd stupidly joked that like, yeah, it's my last podcast. So I was like, it's just like it's a fitting way to.
It's a long con.
And so in light of what I'm going to be doing, in a few weeks, I thought it'd be a good time for us to
Don't. Stop it, dude. Make my job so much harder.
I couldn't resist. Sorry.
No, seriously, Garnett's not leaving.
Ever.
One Up Yours is still here. Still doing it.
All right. Anyway, so there's like this whole subject comes up, and every time it comes up, the people who are leaving inevitably, get caught up in leaving. They don't wind up talking about it beforehand. So I wanted to jump on this subject very quickly because the extent of conversation that's been serious about it usually amounts to, so-and-so is leaving. It must be because either A, they don't get paid that much, or B, they only got into games journalism in order to become a developer. And I don't think that really applies to any of the folks that I've seen so far that have moved.
I don't know.
Either of them.
I think that a lot of people do get in game journalism with, in the back of their mind a dream that, hey, one day I wouldn't mind making games. I think that's pretty common, actually.
Never crossed my mind when
Never
I got
crossed
into
your
it. Not at all. Never.
I think the way you put it, though, is really critical. You said in the back of
Right.
their head.
You don't see it as a stepping stone, but you want to be involved in games, and you love games, and you think, well, maybe one day I'd be able to make a game.
Okay, so that's a whole...
I think that's pretty common from my friends who are in this industry.
That's a whole other can of worms, though, because what you're saying
Right.
is that the kind of person who is enthusiastic enough to put the amount of time into becoming a critic of games business could also be interested enough to put enough time into and has enough interest in it, in the market to go make a game, or maybe even to go market a game, or to go be a community manager for a game, or to go they
Right.
want to be involved in it because they're so into it.
there are people who get into this just for the pure journalism, and they're journalists first, and they like games. But I think a lot of people they have such a passion for games in many respects, and this is the branch of the industry they get into at first, but they can go in lots of other branches from
You
it.
can't rule anything out if it makes sense to you.
Right. I've seen people leap into PR, into development, into all sorts of
Right, there's lots of paths. So I mean, I guess one of the first things I wanted to hit on is there like some sort of inherent nature to critiquing games that propels you into game development? Is there something to the nature of it? Something as interesting as pointed out to me, Chris Baker sent me a link to an entry Wikipedia, but I mean it looked like it was fairly well backed up about how several French film critiques for what was the name of it? Someone will know the name of the magazine for the French film magazine had gone on to become some of the greatest French film directors of all time, which flies in the face of like what we were thinking of, because a lot of that conversation was, well, do you see sports writers becoming sports players? Do you see film critics becoming directors? Do you see music
You will
critics?
see a lot of writers though who do both, who very comfortably write novels and
Sure.
like Nabokov was taught literature and wrote about it, and also happened to write Lolita and Pale Fire and all this other stuff.
You bring up sports, but with sports, commonly happens the other way. Like once you're done with sports, you go into the broadcast booth.
Right. I mean, like, just because you're a good sports writer doesn't mean you have the athleticism to be a professional athlete. But I think, like, your first question was, does being a game critic give you some sort of acumen that would be useful in transferring into game design? I think completely. And then Sean Elliott, as an example, like, I've known Sean for many years, and whenever me in demos, he'd ask these really pointed, insightful, specific questions about game design that would often throw these people for a loop. The PR people were like, "Oh, I don't know how to answer that." And then the developer, the designer, would be really interested in what he had to say. And like you could tell right then, the very critical, specific way that Sean was looking at these games is a very game design perspective.
The thing there too, there's another element in there. I mean, thanks for that.
But I think other people saw that too in you. It's like
what I don't think necessarily that people in development communicate with one another as often or as freely as we might assume, as though that there's, I know we do hear about secret message boards and stuff, but it's not like there's this big Illuminati camp where everyone who makes games just networks nonstop, and there are often times when, being in the role we are, I'd really try to figure out. It becomes clear the more games you play, especially along genre lines and stuff, and even outside of genre lines, that people are trying to solve the same problems in different ways, and that they're recurring over and over again, and that everyone's got a different take on it, and really trying to figure out, quizzing the people, what are you doing about this? Or I see you're doing this, and getting a sense for how they're approaching it. Then the next studio comes in the next day or the next week, and it happens all year long, and you're seeing it, and you're like, these people aren't networking. They're all basically trying to invent the same wheel right here, but they don't. And so in that respect, I think it's beneficial where, I mean, we do have we have breadth insofar as we know. I mean, I have some network stuff there too, right? All of us, we meet plenty of different people from different studios that otherwise might not talk to one another. Although, I mean, I suspect that they should. I mean, it seems like a good thing. And
we get
so
that
that's
a lot.
one element.
You probably only get that really at GDC time.
Yeah, and that's what's magic at GDC or at DICE. You see these people meeting, and the exchange of ideas is huge and really exciting, and you wish that people would get together more often.
Right. So I think specifically there's that, and like you're saying, that kind of analysis. I mean, if you're really paying close attention to these different things, and you're also aware of you know what to expect. Well, here's the hard thing. I don't want this to sound like I'm just talking nonsense. I'm the emperor's really got no clothes. I'm trying to hide it. It would be really nice to give you specific, concrete examples of the sorts of problems that come up, but I also don't want to reveal anything about the kind of game I'm going to be working on, and inadvertently even by showing you what's on my mind. But a really generic thing would be what happens when you make a game like Battlefield or something. I can safely say that's a little bit different than what we're looking at, and you see other people make that kind of game, and over time I think that helps, and I think that's a good point of view.
You could break it down further. You could say level balancing. How do you balance a level? How do you balance a level in MotorStorm so that it works for buggies and so that it works for trucks? How do you balance a level in Battlefield so that a guy playing soldier and a guy playing gunner can all be beneficial and part of the team? How do you balance
World of Warcraft
so that an instance, these balance issues, it's the same story.
You or I might not have again, World of Warcraft. Let's say an MMO, where you get the problem where, because you're able to freely access the world in its entirety for the most part. I mean, there are some bottlenecks that they put in, but huge parts of the world, you could come across an area that you're going to be directed to later on because it's a quest. What happens? We've all seen it in different games, and they handle it differently. People are doing the quest, and what if you do it even though you haven't accepted the quest? Nothing. In some games, nothing happens. Then you go back and do it again, and they're there again. That would be a kind of example. If you're going to be dealing with a world like that, and it's already coming up in Far Cry 2 from what I've played, you would be aware. So it's if you start working on Far Cry 2, you're like, this is parallel, and we're probably going to run into a situation like that. What do we do about that? Are we happy with the solution?
How do we handle
that's
persistence?
There? And while you or I might not, have the answers, it's I can't go in and tell DICE how to balance everything. But what we can do is provide perspective of, say, here are a range of potential solutions that we know other people have attempted. I can really specifically tell you how I think they might have failed or succeeded in different ways,
That's definitely a big part of it, and part of it, if you're looking at it from the outside, is that the catch-all phrase of game development encompasses a number of different disciplines. Some of them are definitely more learned skills like programming, AI behavior, art, and the various forms of art design. Whether you're talking about the creative side of it, or you're talking about the nuts and bolts of modeling and all that sort of stuff.
There aren't a lot of games journalists who leap into programming and art.
Probably
next
to none.
One or two, but yeah, it's pretty rare.
It's a
very specialized skill set that you had to go to school and get a degree in, and you're not going to learn that writing game reviews.
And that's why I never thought it never crossed my mind that I would end up making a game, because especially when I knew so little about how games were actually created, I thought you have to be like a math wizard, right? But you have to be a really...
I think during these last few years, when you'd go on these trips and you'd meet these game developers, you'd see what it's like, and you start to realize, well, I'm not a math lead, but there are positions here that I could do.
And increasingly, games are collaborative projects with a number of people occupying a number of different roles. This is much different than, like, say, none of us could go and make Braid like Jonathan Blow did. It's a whole other scenario. But we might be able, we've got a team of 100-something people, you might be able to contribute in some shape or fashion there, right?
Right. Like when Eric Wolpaw got hired at Valve, that was inspiring because I was like, this dude is hilarious and he has lots of different skill sets and he's getting to do what he's best at, which is be funny, Like that's amazing.
A classic case. I mean, Wolpaw was writing, and look at that. I mean, he wrote one of the coolest game, narratives that I've experienced. There's people. It's funny too. It's not a new tradition. Joe Fielder. A lot of people forget him. He's associated with GameSpot, EGM for so many years.
I worked with him at EGM.
Yeah, he's been at EA for many years now. I mean, it wasn't so high profile when he made that transition. Now, I mean, it was kind of like the pre-podcast era and stuff. But very, very successfully and comfortably, switched over and some of the same things. I mean, he did some different things. He taught himself to mod, and he's just using simple tools like Neverwinter Nights. Started saying, let's make some levels and get a feel for how things work. And now he does writing for games. I mean, he's done level design and all kinds of stuff.
See, it's interesting you brought that up because I think that what we're talking about is that there's a number of different positions within a game design team, a large-scale team like we're talking about, and there are different routes to reaching them. For instance, like you're just talking about Joe, if you're wanting to do level design, there's nothing probably more beneficial for you than to go out and get involved in one of the moddable games, start building levels, learning what works in your level designs, sharing with people online, really like becoming the level design guru by doing it, because that's really that's a practice start. If you want to go become an artist, there's probably nothing really better than to go to some sort of school where you're going to learn how to do whatever modeling program you want to run.
We're not going to end up, we're not going and becoming like art leads and stuff on games.
School's still a big part of this. Any the kids out there who are like, I'm not going to go to school. I'm just I'm going to write some reviews for my fan site and
they're
get hired.
Being facetious. Right. What you see there are people that. And I think it's right that they be suspicious, because what happens is if we really are getting into writing about games with the end design of moving over to development, that's really sketchy, I mean, that throws into question every comment we make about a game. I mean, are we praising things just because we hope to join this team? And that's totally and I know where they're coming from that. And I was surprised, when we were taping yesterday and taking some questions. I wanted someone to ask me that, because I mean, I do agree. I think it and they're welcome to it. They can go back and look at everything I've written and everything I said and decide for themselves if they think I was being, if I was a bullshitter. And I think that's a frustrating aspect of it. And I'm glad to say that I really didn't anticipate it, and I wasn't working toward that, and I wasn't using this job in order to...
I wouldn't think it's morally muddy like that. It's the same reason that someone who is a huge... they're why can't someone who likes music or writes about music become a musician, or why can't someone who writes about film? I think it's just a weird standard that people have.
Well, it's because specifically they would be joining... What if they're joining a band that they had been writing about in some capacity for a number of years?
That's probably happened. I mean, that might have happened. Who knows?
It might have happened, yeah. But I mean, but that doesn't mean.
I think I tend to see more where the audience is coming from on this one.
Yeah,
I mean, it casts a pretty heavy shadow to me, dude. I mean, if you're writing about, if you're the shooter guy and you're writing about a number of shooters, and at the same time you're talking to the Crysis team about coming to work for them, how awkward would it be?
Well, you mean you shouldn't be reviewing Crysis then?
Or other highly competitive,
or their competition. It suddenly throws everything into a sconce. I mean, you're like, wow, how do I handle this?
That kind of presupposes some sort of this is my plan. My plan is to get hired, and that's not. That's
never
how it is. That's not how it is.
From the perspective of reality, that approach will probably backfire. This is no consolation to our audience, but that approach will probably backfire, because I don't think any wise developer is going to want some bootlick who's not going to come in and say, because. That's another thing we can give, right? Is I'm not saying their perspective is entirely insular, but ours definitely might have a breadth in a different direction.
Right.
I mean, we're used to talking to, since we play everything and we can be honest, that's good for them. Good developers love that thing. I mean, they love being able to get feedback that's hey, it might hurt. People might say, you know what, this is fucking boring and this sucks. But better they find out that early and think it over and decide, you know what, maybe we think there's a point to this. Let's rethink our plans and let's rework this project. Or just say, you know what, we know exactly what the fuck we're doing. We don't care what you think to everyone. And then you release a game and then you wonder why no one likes it afterward, you know? So I think it's like, now it's like weird giving advice. Well, if you want to get in the studio, just make sure you're honest. But I think just being straight up, just giving your honest opinion about everything is only going to help you. So, I mean, that's like the good insurance policy.
Because the experience that we have playing all these games, hundreds of games, meeting all these developers, seeing every aspect of the industry, that's something that a lot of people don't have who end up in game development. You know, we've seen a lot. We
also network with fans of,
you're talking about on the design side,
games a lot.
You're going through tremendous numbers of iterative designs on different genres. You've seen, 150,000 different shooters. You've seen, not 100, you've seen hundreds and hundreds of different shooters. You've seen hundreds of different RPGs. You've seen 100 of different action games. You've seen a million ways of handling, ammo systems and counter systems, triggers, dialogues, all these displays, HUDs, all these different things.
And on top of that, we've seen a million types of responses to those things. We know how other people that we work with respond to them. We know how the people that post on our boards and stuff do, and that's not everyone. Everyone's aware that this enthusiast group is a very small subset, which is funny because the people like, Soulja Boy posted this review of Braid, review of Braid. Everyone got so upset, though.
Hilarious.
Everyone
it's
was
so funny.
Upset, and it was fucking rad. I bet a lot of people would love that kind of feedback because that's the person. Everyone knows what the dude who posts on Gaff every time he gets upset thinks, but who knows what fucking Soulja Boy walks in or on Xbox Live one night he's like, you know what? Let's try this shit out. What do they think of that? What do they make of it? There's nothing that's not legitimate about the point of view. And it was funny because everyone was so upset, and making, it wasn't even funny at all when they were making, racist comments and stuff. And they're like, this guy's just an idiot. And it's like, I've talked about that before, but whenever people try to delegitimize other people's points of view, but what I would say is, I think the best of us are kind of tuned in, especially some freelancers who write for a wide range of audiences. Maybe you do something for Wired, it's got one audience. Maybe you do something for a paper. Maybe you do something for a hardcore enthusiast thing or for Gama Sutra. And every one of those, to write successfully for these outlets means you have to have some sense of what their audience,
you have to learn how to think in another headspace.
And I think that's another good thing to have. It's part of that breadth that I keep talking about. You know that you can step outside of your own perspective entirely and sort of represent how other people are going to respond.
Right. So one of the skills you develop definitely that translates well is this whole design acumen. You're very, very well versed in what works, and you have a very well developed vocabulary for all of the design features of a game and how to express them and talk about them. What else translates well into development schemes? What do you guys think? Organizational skills.
If you're going to
imaginary people skills.
Well, the difference between design and production. Like production is very detail oriented. You're managing, you're keeping schedules. You're keeping everybody on track. It's not as
you know how to do that like nobody's business.
Yeah, it's not what I like doing though.
But producing a magazine.
Right. Yeah.
In a microcosm, you're working with different subsets of teams. You're working with an art team. There's ad teams. You might not necessarily working with them directly, but there's all these different elements. You got, say, a freelance illustrator. You got freelance writers. You got in-house writers. I'm not trying to say putting together a magazine is nowhere near as complicated as putting together like a AAA game, but you are comfortable and used to being a go-between for different elements of a project, And
you understand the value of the timeline.
That can be you can look at that as being like a training camp, like a preschool starter program for doing that on a grander scale,
Right. Management experience, you need that to make if you're going to be in production in gaming. But design is a different beast altogether, and design is kind of the hard one to get into, where it's very conceptual ideas, and that's
the advantage you get here, right? So that's part of my ideas. I definitely want to learn design and stuff, and normally my sense is that you do mods and you have a portfolio of things to show. You have written design documents. You're basically showing how you'd work, and the difference with here is that I'm pretty lucky, right? Ken Levine and the other people at 2K, if they chose to, they had a chance to see how I think for years and to listen to me and get some sense that most applicants aren't going to enjoy that. It's a huge privilege, and that's when I feel really lucky because they get to say, you know what? You can listen to someone for 2 years and be like, you know what? I wouldn't mind having this guy as a coworker. And no one else is going to have that advantage. That's part of what comes with being out there in the way that we are, people feel it was great when I walked in there. The lead artist knew who I was, and he didn't even know I was coming in there. And I was like, it's fucking crazy. This guy knows who I am. He was talking about my blog. I'm like, Well, shit, I love what you do too, man. You're a fucking damn fine artist, you know.
What about the flight of late to community management positions? What is it about this?
It's a new kind of a new beast. I mean,
Okay.
that community manager didn't really exist 5 years ago in the way that it is now.
And it's something that's really very much grown out of almost an extension of what we do in the online side of journalism.
I mean,
right?
It's probably the most like translatable translatable.
I think it's also the one that people can, cast more dispersion on, try to make it more of a gray area, as opposed to, you're not making the game, you're not producing the game, you're there to be the liaison between the game and the people.
It depends on the outfit, though.
I know Brian
exactly
is doing some different things than what Luke is doing, than what Che is doing, than what Kathleen is doing, or whatever.
It's another great way too to get a sense for how the studio functions, so that you can start to accept responsibilities that might not officially be in your job description and see what you excel at and what you're interested in. So, I mean, like that I totally understand that element.
Yeah.
And some people really love, we love talking to our fans. I mean, this shit's called One Up Yours, There's I can't disparage the community aspect, because we're based on community.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we're like micro community managers for One Up.
Well, I mean, that's one of the big pieces of how community management works for a carryover, is because I think that people who go over to a studio and they have this built-in understanding of what are people out in the community listening to, what are they interested in, and how can that be related into my game, and how can it be how can that be a vibrant part of what I'm bringing back, and then take a step further with what Brian's doing. Okay, how do I not just have that as some button on my website or whatever, but how do I actually make my game truly working as part of a community, day in and day out when people are playing it, and really, try not to use buzzwords, but whatever. Really integrate that into the game. Really make that part of the game experience. Really make it to where
synergize that.
I was stopping because I'm I don't want to use any of those dumbass buzzwords. But how do you really make it so that when people are playing the game, they get a real sense of community, they feel all tied together, and then when they go outside the game, they still feel hey, I'm part of Resistance, and there's this cool part of Resistance that's going on. I can interface with that, and it's cool. I think that's where. What about PR and marketing?
Even before that, I wanted to bring the writing thing in, just being able to communicate. We've talked about that, but writing all the time, no matter what your job, that's a fucking fine talent to have. It's going to come up over and over again. Clearly, if you can clearly and concisely communicate something to other people, no matter what you do, that's going to be important. And I think a lot of times, I'm a firm believer that. Let me just start with a quick anecdote. Reading Game Developer magazine not so long ago, and sometimes I find some really incredible articles in there. One was by an art lead who works for EA, and you normally associate an art lead with this is an artist, right? He communicates through pictures and stuff, not necessarily words. Except he was hyper articulate, very insightful, and the way he's writing, in my opinion, puts a lot of people to shame, myself included. And you're this is a dude who does art for games, and you're he's not. This isn't his specialty, but look how fucking smart this guy is. Look how articulate he is, and look at how what a capable communicator he is. And that's because that's part of his job, right? And then he's able to do that as well. And so I think no matter what people are doing, the writing part is good. It's going to help you in some respect. And there are a lot of good.
It's funny if you look online and read all the detractors of this of games journalists becoming game developers. They just kind of assume that we can't write and that games journalism writing has no value and no merit. And I think maybe they're just looking at the wrong places, because there are a lot of very talented writers in games journalism.
Absolutely, no argument. All right.
So the PR thing?
PR. We know people who've gone to PR, and there's definitely people who've gone to marketing.
We see how PR people work through proximity. We get a sense for what their job duties are, and we get a sense for what's effective with a subset of their audience. We definitely know what might serve them when they're dealing with the press, because we've been on the receiving end of it. We might have some sense for what works and what doesn't work with the enthusiast audience, because we see that firsthand. We see the backlash, or we see people just soaking it up and ending up promoting things for them in a way that they might not have even anticipated. So there's that. And if that's your thing, I suppose being on this side of the fence, you could probably say that it.
I don't think I can do PR.
Generally, the impetus for journalists to go into PR is money, because it is a more lucrative field.
Yeah.
Than journalism, but in a way, you kind of feel like you're selling out, because you might be doing PR for a game you don't like. I have a lot of friends who've had to rep really shitty games.
It's hyper pressure.
Yeah,
it's super high pressure.
And when you're writing the press release for Todd McFarlane's Evil Prophecy, and it's the review scores, it's your responsibility to try to get them as good as you can. Like, yeah, that's not a fun job necessarily.
And you got to report to the people at top. I mean, we've heard all these stories where the people that run the companies will turn to the PR people as though it's their fault.
Right.
Yeah.
What did you do wrong? Why are these 7s? Why aren't these 9s?
You don't see as much leaping in that way, but you do see it, and some people end up really liking it because there are good places to work, there are good products to represent.
There are people who do a really fine job of it,
right? And especially people who really know games, because that's a problem in the PR world. A lot of people are public relations and not for games, and they'll come into games and suddenly they'll be representing these titles they have no idea what they're representing. So that if you're a real gamer, I think you could become a really good PR person.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think there's examples of those out there. I just think
There
I think that people who think that you're they're just going to take a cop out to go for the money. Yeah, you might get paid better, but don't have any.
It's not easy.
Don't have any illusions. PR is a really tough job.
And again, they really have to have the breadth because they can't just talk to the enthusiasts. Like look at the way Spore is coming out. They've got to be able to know about like what Soldier Boy is going to think too.
You basically have to be willing to get yelled at by everybody and still smile and be excited and enthusiastic about anything.
Yeah,
it's just pretty damn tough job. Pretty damn tough job. Okay, I got a question for Sean to like wrap this up, because this is something like I've talked about before on the show, and I've talked about with John Davison before, which is that I feel like one of the biggest detrimental impacts of the way we have folks like yourself and Jeff Green who go into game development is really they don't come back. I mean, we haven't had anybody who come back. I don't know if there's any chance of that happening down the road. That might be an interesting thing to talk about. But if you look at the career of professional people, it is somewhere in their mid to late 30s when you start to really hit your stride. And there's that era like between, if you look at any other industry, the era between when people like the powerful people, the influencers are between probably late 30s and early 50s. That's when you're at the height of your power, experience, knowledge. And the problem is so many of the best and brightest in games journalism who would go on to fill those positions, like yourself, like where Jeff Green was, leave, and then we have that power vacuum at the top. And I think that's one of the reasons that games journalism or games criticism gets looked down at, is that we have a real vacuum at the top of the heap. How do we overcome that?
I mean, I think there's different reasons. Like, I mean, for one, I could write about games for the rest of my life, and I anticipate continuing to do it in some capacity, whether it means being allowed to pitch something to, I'm not saying they'll accept it, but trying to pitch something to the cool people at Gama Sutra and Game Developer or whatever, or, blogs and stuff, and especially as you're in the business longer, then you probably have more freedom to do that. But, I mean, right now, I think what happens is you get older and you get the sense that the medium is immature, and the medium's maturing, but likewise with the way that it's reported on. And you have all these ideas. Now, I could seem idealistic at times, talking about critique over reviews, but you don't feel so. I personally don't feel so comfortable just doing like a preview or whatever that is ultimately supposed to just be a part of a PR package or something like that. And then I think honestly, I mean, I'm not saying that like 1UP is just a specific way, but I think for stuff that really goes against the grain and really like goes to that audience, there are relatively few places that can do it where you can collect a check. And that's the difficult thing, because it takes time and you need to be able to support yourself. And with so few options, that's an issue right there, right? Having another job maybe would empower you to continue to do that. But I mean, when it comes to it, there are a few options. And then like for the places that are there's always pressure to do. It's a business. You have to make money and you have to do what's going to like keep you in business. And so far there's not just like this enormous like audience with a voracious appetite for like that type of thing.
Right. If we had the New Yorker for games, if that existed, there would be a bunch of 40-something games journalists who would love to write for it, I'm sure, but it doesn't exist. And like,
right. And when you get close, where like, I'm a fan of Edge. I like what they do. I like what Eurogamer does, but their numbers are really small. And to more power to them. I'm fucking ecstatic that it exists and they could do that. But part of my point, though, is that there are only so many people that want to consume that. And that means there are only so many positions for people who want to produce it,
Right.
And that, like, personally for me, that's a big thing. I mean, that's a big limiting factor.
I think we could probably all kind of agree with what Sean's saying is like, when you get to a certain age in this industry, you've been in games journalism for how many years, and you want to start doing different things, new things, more, outside the box thinking. But part of the problem is enthusiast games journalism, it really just needs a new preview of that Spectrobes game. And like,
well, yes, at that level it
right,
does.
There is
definitely that level.
Someone's coming by with a game, won't name any, but just whatever game, it's like, and you have to do something about it because they are coming by, and they're not just coming by to your place; they're coming by to 10 others, and everyone's got to have their thing up at this time.
Yeah.
And that time is an hour from when you saw it, so that means you need to you don't have time to digest what you've seen and have an angle on it. You just got to regurgitate what you've heard, and it's like. Not to knock it, I appreciate that. There's a lot you can learn doing that. There's a ton, but it's as you're talking about as you get older. When you get 40, do I want to be doing that? I personally don't. The answer is no.
I mean, in the art and commerce division, I think not well.
But I'm not saying
it was awesome. It was
I'm
awesome.
not saying you do
No,
that, though,
no
Barney.
offense,
I mean, you don't do I keep saying Barney Rubble's Bedrock Racing because it's like it doesn't exist, and so it's not going to.
Let me tell you, one of the reasons that I drug my ass down here to keep doing this show over and over and over, and went through it was that this is definitely one of those outlets.
Well, and games journalism is
totally an outlet where we all love doing it. I know you guys absolutely. I mean, this is like your battery. It recharges you for whatever you have to do that might not be the first thing on your list of to do. This will always recharge you to keep you ready for it.
Absolutely
GFW
does.
is the same way for me.
And I think games journalism is changing, and it's curious to see what's going to happen to it. But I like to think that we all change it, and you change it, and the things we said on these podcasts, and the things you wrote in the magazines. And,
definitely.
And that users might want to break out of the product PR cycle that controls not just games but all media. Pick up Entertainment Weekly. How many insightful, deep, and meaningful stories are going to be in there? Maybe one every 3 months. That's one slips in there, but you're generally just reading. Thinly veiled commercials for what's coming out.
Right.
Yeah.
So to answer your question about coming back, say hypothetically, I go and I make this game, and I decide it's not for me. Of course, I do not anticipate this being the case, but say that does happen.
Right.
Am I going to be worse off if I come back and start
Absolutely not.
writing about games? I mean, I think on the contrary, I'm going to have that much more of a perspective into.
I think it'd be a great perspective.
Yeah, to see it from both sides. Yeah.
I think it would be fantastic to see someone who's been on this. I think you could do it, dude. Of all the people out there I know, you would do a fantastic job at that.
I mean, it's like you wouldn't if that hypothetical thing were to happen, it's like you wouldn't want to write everything because it's not our job to write everything from the perspective of the developer, but that would be another perspective of many that you then integrate into the stories that you produce.
Absolutely. Well, definitely 2K Boston is definitely richer for getting you on. Hey, we're lucky. You're gonna add a list into the games.
Anytime they let me on, I'll come on, man.
All right.
Nice.
All right, stick around. When we come back in just a minute, we're gonna hit the news. All right, back and ready to get into the news. And as Shane noted during the break, damn, that's a lot of Guitar Hero stuff to start this off with. Don't worry, dude, we'll rock right through it. Activision's Bobby Kotick has been active talking up the franchise over the past few weeks. One of his latest quips came to MTV Multiplayer, where he said that their version of Guitar Hero generated far more in revenues than any Aerosmith album ever has. Yes, that's right. Guitar Hero. I like the look on Andrew's face. That's what Kotick said.
Permanent Vacation, really big seller,
big hit and big ones or whatever. I mean,
big ones.
I find this a little
revenue for who?
For Aerosmith. He says
and they must have had a really shitty deal on the millions of records.
Well, any individual album.
Oh, more than any individual album.
Right.
Run DMC.
But still, how much are they making on each? Maybe that's the reason.
Well, I mean, it's a lot more. Songs that cost so much. It's a lot more expensive than an album, especially if you buy the one with the guitar.
Yeah, but how much does Aerosmith actually get? I mean, their cut of it must be pretty hefty, then, don't you think? If it's driven that much revenue into their pockets.
Are they a Universal Recording artist?
Shane, does every home in Kentucky now have an Aerosmith Guitar Hero sitting next to a bunch of Beanie Babies?
Aerosmith, couple of empty Miller Lite bottles.
Aerosmith isn't that Kentucky. I mean, we're more into country music, quite frankly.
Dude, there's some fucking Aerosmith fans.
There are some Aerosmith fans.
All right. Also, Shaq News had a story on how Guitar Hero World Tour is also going to have, as part of their music creation system, the ability to import MIDI information from your PC into your PlayStation 3 or Xbox 360 version of the game. For some reason, there's some sort of hardware issue that limits it to only drum tracks on the 360 version, but on the PS3 version you'll be able to do everything.
Weird.
Isn't that odd?
Yeah, why bother if it's just drum tracks?
I do think that's interesting because, as I've said, the music creation suite is really complicated, but if you're smart enough to have MIDI instruments and understand that shit, I think it's probably pretty full-featured, actually.
So, yeah, it looks pretty full-featured to me, and now people who are really doubters, I mean, this thing is gonzo nuts if you're going to be able to just basically do MIDI composition and throw it onto the PC. And I liked one of the other extensions that was mentioned at the bottom of the story, which was, if you're going to a concert or whatever, why not just have people, like the band, could hand out MIDI versions of their latest hit or whatever on a thumb drive, and you can go home and take it and put it on your guitar. It's a great way to virally get your music out as well.
You can bring the concert of the future. There's like a bunch of plugs in the floor, and you bring your Guitar Hero and play along. Imagine how sad that guy.
Oh my God, I can see that happening.
Visualize it,
Dude, that's horrific.
That is horrific.
Like an entire front row of 30 plastic drum kits.
Dude, that's
like an orchestra pit.
Yeah, dude. Exactly.
That's a nightmare vision.
Oh God.
That is sort of a nightmare vision, isn't it?
The next Radiohead light show.
Wow.
Yeah, it's the laserium of the next decade.
There's also been a number of analyst day briefings lately. Activision had theirs. This is the last piece of Guitar Hero information. This one's kind of sobering. In their briefing during that analyst day, they explained, this also came out of Shack News, that they intend to triple the number of Guitar Hero releases by 2010.
Which would be 18 a year.
After doubling them in 2009.
I know Vivendi Universal Blizzard is feeling their oats. They own 30% of the music industry. Yep. They are outselling Rock Band 6-1. But seriously, guys, really? Triple after doubling?
Well, I think that my problem here is I'm a huge fan of these games, and I'm getting close to my limit on numbers of their whole thing here is that they want to sell new SKUs. Right. It's all about it. Let's sell another unit product so we can make more money off it. And these games, they're getting to the point where we need music for them. I don't need new. What do I need new? Like you said, the instruments. How awesome are they now?
Wait, isn't that what we're talking about when they say triple the content? Doesn't it mean
no,
triple the SKUs,
triple the products?
Yeah, they tend to triple the releases.
Physical.
And by releases, they mean a whole nother box for you to go buy.
But that could just be like Aerosmith, right? What if you just get a disc? Doesn't come with any instruments. And it's here's this album or this artist.
Yeah, you're right. A lot of them will be just standalone discs.
Mm-hmm. But the differentiation I make there is in Japan with Dance Dance Revolution, you had add-on packs that were just the music, and that's kind of sensible, right? But for some reason, they don't ever do that here. It's every time it has to be a whole new game.
For example, there's an AC/DC thing coming out for Rock Band. It's just going to be a download. It's not going to be a $60 game.
But I don't think they're going to count that as a
it's being
as
considered
a release.
Treat it like a platform where you get the different things for it, or it's probably going to burn out, man.
Right.
If they keep fucking doing that.
Just imagine a karaoke machine where you have to get up and change the disc manually every time you want to do it.
Dude, I completely agree.
You got to change the karaoke machine, dude.
Yeah.
During the same Activision briefing, they did say that there might be some sort of subscription model for downloadable content for Guitar Hero moving forward, where you pay a monthly fee and it gives you access
to the 99-cent club of Guitar Hero, where you get fucking a bunch of songs for 99 cents, and then all the rest are $20 a song.
It's the record club, dude. Yeah, it's the record club for Guitar Hero.
Wow.
The Columbia Music Guitar Hero Club.
And only 13-year-olds sign up for it with their mom's credit card info.
Don't
and
forget to fill out your special gold box selection.
But
Garnet,
if you're getting kind of inundated by all this, you can always go off the grid, throw away your Guitar Hero and just play Yankee Doodle Dandy on your Wii Music.
Okay.
Enjoy some public domain music. Stars and Stripes forever.
Or Donkey Konga that everyone seemed to love. When I'm packing, I threw the fucking conga drum in the trash.
I
thought about that. I looked at this thing and I was like, I'm still bitter about that. People told me EGM reviews saying that shit was good. Oh,
CJ loved that game.
Bitter about it. I hated it.
You don't want to go home and play the DK rap. Be careful, the banana gun, it shoots in spurts.
Maybe I should have saved it to play Jungle Beat, but
after a somewhat fitful start, I guess sort of like the banana gun, PlayStation Life with PlayStation has officially launched. It's very strange. So there were people who, with the 2.43...
Yeah, it accidentally went up early for an hour.
Yeah, it was early, and then they were like, no, it was an accident, and then lo and behold, no, now they announced that worldwide release of it was September 18th, which was yesterday, for those of you listening on Friday. And basically, the Live with PlayStation, the first... so they said actually that they're calling this the first channel. So who knows what they have intended to do down the line with it. It sort of emulates what the Wii channels have with the weather and the news. And it's also a new skin for folding at home, which lets you look at some really, really cool protein models as all the folding's going on and shit. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's kind of cool. I think the neatest feature is it has little webcams from all the different cities. You can check out what's going on.
It's like a globe, right?
Yeah,
but it's lacking a ton of cities right now. They need to add a lot of cities.
Well, I'm getting a full refund on my free download.
I'm just saying.
Does it look as good as the globe from the music visualizer?
It's very similar. Yeah, it has real cloud formations, which is kind of awesome.
I read that. That's awesome.
Yeah, so they have the cloud mapping. They have that's provided by the University of Wisconsin, Madison.
Represent.
Space Science and Engineering Center, along with weather from the Weather Channel and headlines from the Google News.
Right, and assuming that it's a moving target, the dream is to incorporate Google Maps,
right.
Google Earth into it.
The live camera images that you were talking about are some of them are provided by the Earth Television Network. So I mean, they're pushing a lot of content out. I mean, it coincides with the sort of media presentations they want to do to the PS3. The same thing they added with the Gran Turismo 5 Prologue and the GT TV. I mean, they're definitely catching up or looking to catch up to Microsoft on the whole let's make this a media portal of the PS3, right? Also at the Activision Analyst Day, the briefing, they revealed how much money they've spent keeping World of Warcraft running since they launched it in 2004.
Oh, poor you with your $200 million spent. Fuck off.
This isn't surprising.
No, I mean, it's actually kind of funny. It's like they spent $200 million keeping it running since 2004.
And how much did they make?
Well, they don't ever actually perfectly disclose that, but if you go back and look at their financials, they've made significantly more.
Well, they have, 14 million subscribers.
Oh, well, yeah, we need to do the
spending
math.
A lot of money.
Yeah, so I mean, like the math that we did down to the fast math was that, if you have like 9 million subscribers at $15, anyway, they're making like about $130 million a month. Month. Well,
holy shit,
it's expensive. $200 million, dude. $200 million in 4 years. And
how did they break that down? It's like customer service.
They had payroll, hardware support, and customer service.
Is that like bandwidth too?
Nope, it does not say that it includes that. It just says that it includes payroll for the staff, hardware support, and the customer service.
$100 million for champagne wishes and caviar dreams.
It's heavy-duty stuff, dude. And running an MMO is not cheap, and that's one of the hurdles that evidently is facing Stargate Worlds. Stargate series has faced a very difficult... Like, Stargate, for as popular as sci-fi...
For as popular as Jay Davison is as a transsexual Egyptian warlord... It's shocking that this MMO is not hitting the ground running.
But
there was supposed to be a shooter based on
squad-based shooter. Do you remember like 4 or 5 years ago?
I read that shit.
I know. So like, as popular as the TV series has been, they say it's like the most popular.
As popular as it is,
it's been super popular. It's run for like what, dude? How many seasons of Stargate did they have?
You mean
they
Stargate
have
Atlantis or Stargate SG-1?
They have Stargate Atlantis.
I think the popularity of a show on Sci-Fi Channel is perhaps misleading.
It was on Showtime before that, right? Wasn't it Showtime?
I don't know.
It's on Showtime. It's been syndicated.
Stargate.
You what?
Who was ever that into Stargate? I've never met him.
I've never met him.
They sure have made a hell of a lot of them.
We got a wide range of freak fans in our office.
John Davison, who's not here, he was a big fan of Lex.
Was he really?
He saw that show.
He was?
What was that?
It was bad.
Go watch it on YouTube, dude. You'll love it. Dude, didn't you like Farscape with the fucking Muppets? Is that you?
I loved Farscape.
No.
Dude, I loved Farscape.
Fucking Muppet babies,
dude,
too.
Farscape was awesome.
No, it wasn't.
But Lex, which came out afterwards, was not.
David Chen loved Farscape.
David Chen has excellent taste. See?
Okay, so is the Stargate game coming out or no?
That's under debate at the moment. Evidently, according to Massively, who broke this story yesterday afternoon, Cheyenne Mountain Entertainment employee contacted them with an anonymous tip saying that the project is in critical financial condition, that they've endured a whole bunch of debt, that there have been layoffs being planned for a long time, and that the future of the game is basically in jeopardy.
Yikes.
So we'll see more of this as it develops in the coming weeks, but...
Isn't Conan also in a little bit of trouble when some guy quit?
They brought in a new community manager.
Oh, the Anarchy Online community?
And Phil said that the guy did a great job with Anarchy Online, and this was actually a good move for Conan, and it might put them in a good place to potentially compete with Warhammer, which is just, dude, everybody who's fucking picked up Warhammer is like, oh my god, I love it.
All I've heard is that it's just the same old shit. It's another...
Phil was like, I went to lunch with Phil today. He's like, dude, I don't know, man. He's like, we'll see if it sticks. But so far, I like it a lot better.
He's been playing?
Yeah, he's been playing.
Interesting. Yeah, well, he's the kind of dude it was made for. So
he said he was totally into that. He said he
was painting some figurines at his desk.
The big issue with it now, everyone's playing on the fucking dark side. The whatever, the chaos and the the Evil Order.
He was telling me, like, we have an interview going up with the producer to go along with the release, and this was really weird. Like, every game, every MMO has had its struggles handling server load at the beginning because they don't have many servers to put up, and then, you know, the popular ones get really overcrowded. So what their plan of attack to fix this is that when a server gets into a condition where it's overloaded and bogging down, it'll replicate itself onto mirrored servers that have the exact same, that have your character with all your gear and everybody else on that, and such that when you then log in, if the original, you know, Alpha 1 server is loaded, then it'll say Alpha 1's loaded. Do you want to play on Alpha 2 or Alpha 3?
Then it always has to sync between the two when you're done.
I don't know. I didn't hear the rest of the story, but to me, that I don't know if that works.
I don't know either. That's what Shane says.
Well, it'd be annoying if you got on and you thought you were on with your friends and you're not, and then you get a bunch of stuff on that server.
It's PSO.
And then you come back and there was a hiccup and that stuff didn't happen. I don't know. It seems sketchy to me.
Yeah, it seems. Doesn't seem to me like that would work.
All right.
I understand why they do it. It just doesn't seem like it would work. Anyway, speaking of not working, David Jaffe.
He's working on something.
He's working on something. He's working on something. That's cheap.
But this story's funny.
All right, I'll pull that back. This story is funny. David Jaffe and Sony have been sued by a couple of prospective filmmakers who have charged that God of War
They had all the ideas for Greek mythology from the beginning.
that pretty much.
They're also suing Greece.
They're suing Greece. They're suing Greece mythology. They have filed a court order against Zeus.
Oh.
Anyway, they were floating a couple of scripts around the Hollywood studios back in 2002, and among those studios was Sony Pictures, and they alleged that Sony Pictures passed that into the Sony internal development teams, which in turn then made God of War. Some of their points, as you noted, were very much just the points of the mythology, which is that God of War, like the plaintiff's work, is the story of how a champion chosen by Zeus and Athena saves Athens from destruction by an invading army sent by Ares. Well,
one of their points is there's a weapon called like the Blades of Chaos.
There's some similar names and locations.
There are some similar names. So the point you're talking about, it says that the quote from the suit says that in exchange for Kratos' pledge, Ares gives him a pair of unique weapons, the Blades of Chaos.
But that's a pretty generic name for a sword, I think.
Two massive glowing sword-like blades fastened to chains fused to Kratos' wrists.
Dude, if they've got that's pretty fucking specific.
That's pretty detailed.
Specific, and that's not the only thing.
That he swirls about in slashing attacks on his victims. You know, I mean,
nobody swings a sword.
If you got a sword with chain on it, what else are you gonna do with it? But to be honest though, like
that's fairly
if all
specific.
this is documented and you can hold it out, and then it does, and it's got the similar plot twist with his family and all this. Then
it's worth going to court for.
Maybe there's a case there.
It's definitely worth going to court for. I mean, it's definitely worth trying the waters and seeing if they can substantiate their claims. So far,
I smell frivolous lawsuit.
Is that the part where he falls off the fucking spinning platform with blades on it?
Well,
then there's no case.
It has
You're just gonna bang that gavel.
Just played the game. It's like, nah, sorry, man, I played that. I didn't get to that level.
Evidently, it does have both of them have the champion's family being hacked to death in a one-room building in a small peaceful village.
That's not cliched at all. If it doesn't have the gratuitous threesome, then just throw that case out of court.
Well, anyway, so Jaffe, of course, has responded, as has Sony, that the allegations are false, and they'll go to court. They'll see what happens. It seemed to me, I kind of agree that some of the stuff is way too broad, but it does seem that they might have had a better case to just say that some of the intellectual ideas were reused, not the whole.
Until we see the case and all the evidence, and it's like, what can we say?
We can dig into it then. Speaking of key developers, some of the team at Retro Studios have left. This would be guys who are working on Metroid Prime. They formed a new outfit called Armature Studio, and I think what's really interesting is not just the fact that these guys have gone to form their own studio, but what they're doing, and they've partnered with Electronic Arts. This would be Mark Pacini speaking. He says that EA approached us with a really interesting business model of creating a small studio that is only comprised of industry veterans. The goal is to create new IP with a very, very small team and produce a game without having to grow that team. Now, what they're saying is basically these veterans come up with the ideas, they prototype it up, and then they oversee satellite studios doing the nuts and bolts work. It's sort of a Mistwalker type of thing, right?
Yeah.
How well do we think that worked out for Mistwalker so far?
They've had their successes and failures.
Do you think Blue Dragon turned out as well as it could have if Sakaguchi had been right on top of it the whole time producing it? Are you happy with it? Was Artoon that did that, right?
I mean, I think both Blue Dragon and Lost Odyssey are good, but I think that had Sakaguchi had more direct control, they would have been better.
Anyway, so it's going to be interesting to see how that works out. What do you think, Sean, as a guy who's going into development? What do you think of that approach, that sort of
Sounds interesting, but I don't know enough. I'll have a valid opinion when I see firsthand how one methodology works.
Much less.
Now, to be honest, I don't know, man.
I would also worry that working in retro, they've had their hands tied having to work on Nintendo hardware for many years. So.
Oh, but that definitely came up. I mean, Mark Bashini also commented that from my standpoint, I've never worked on any other console. I've always made games for Nintendo. I'm reinvigorated. I'm really excited about what other opportunities are out there. How can we use Xbox Live?
He's going to see what real games look like.
Yeah, it sounds like
blown.
Thank God I am free from the chains of Iwata.
I got to read the rest of the quote because it's pretty funny. He says, "We had this one palette to work on, the Wii and the DS, but now we have everything," which you could totally misinterpret to be what you guys are saying. Yeah. Spore has come out and already caused all kinds of controversy, much of it due to the digital rights management system that's been employed by EA on the game. There's two elements of it that got a lot of people upset. The first one being that you could only install the game 3 times without having to call back to EA and beg them for another activation. It's very much like the old OS activation for Windows. The second one being that each copy of Spore only allowed you an individual single login. So, for instance, if Suzanne and I wanted to play at home, I'd have to buy a different copy of the game for each of us in order to run our own Spores. You have different saves, but you'd still be saving on the same game. So, if you wanted to have two, entirely separate experiences, you had to split that up. So, what was the result of all this? Obviously, they wanted to try and stop piracy, but it turns out that perhaps it went just the opposite way. A peer-to-peer research firm, Big Champagne, reports that Spore has been illegally downloaded via BitTorrent some 171,000 times since September 1st. Downloads started a full week before the game was released. It's one of the highest rates of piracy they've ever seen, and that the representative Eric Garland of the company said that the numbers are extraordinary. There's a very high level of torrent activity even for an immensely popular game like this.
So they even got around the fact that you need to ID it online when you play.
Yes, evidently it's been cracked and torrented.
This is the thing with determined hackers. I mean, apparently that no matter what you do, they're going to circumvent it. And it's like you've seen this happen over and over again. It happened with BioShock when it came out, right? Anytime DRM is involved.
But hearing that number, hearing almost 200,000 copies in a week
before the game came out,
that's really bad.
It's really bad.
That's really bad.
It is really bad. And this goes back to the argument. Well, and this was this argument Brad Wardell makes of Starbucks. Is like, if you're doing digital rights management like this, you're pissing off the people who'd buy your game, and the people who want to get around it, you're just making them all the more determined to get in there and crack it.
And you're challenging the hackers.
You're challenging the hackers.
It's a pride thing for them. Like, oh, you made your DRM really complicated. Well, I'm gonna bust that.
And I have to say, it's even sunk to another level. Of course, the infamous BitTorrent site Pirate Bay had a user who wrote, "By downloading this torrent, you're doing the right thing. You're letting Electronic Arts know that people won't stand for the ridiculously draconian DRM viruses." Yeah, so
this is the other weird thing that's kind of annoying, for me, about the people that do pirate it, is that there's always this really convoluted excuse to justify it and to make them
make themselves feel better.
But I found that in general, a lot of people are very relativistic about stealing things and downloading things, and people who would never download a game will download an album or a movie.
This is true.
Because it's not a physical copy, and they're not taking it from someone. They're just
and that's look at that, dude. People, I mean, whatever your persuasion is, I'm a firm believer that humans evolved, and if you look at basically our genome and our phenotype right now, if you subscribe to the belief that it basically formed the way it is a couple 100,000 years ago, we certainly didn't come from an environment where there was such a thing as content that doesn't really exist, So it's a great
virtual content.
Whereas I think we have every reason to have situations where people feel like someone cut in front of them in a line to get food or something, and they feel cheated, and we have these emotional reactions to it that reflect, I think, the ways that we prevent ourselves from being cheated on and all this kind of shit. Right. But when it comes to this stuff, this is just abstraction, And I think you would maybe you'd feel guilty if you physically. It's another way of explaining why you'd feel guilty if you physically went in someone's house and came out the door with some shit, or if you pressed a button and then next thing you're doing something differently.
Everything was based on the concept of scarcity, and there's no scarcity here, so just take.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is sad, and the big negative to me out of this is that Spore really had the limelight, and it had this opportunity to really stand for what PC gaming can be, and instead it's inspired people to come up with this kind of crazy backwards logic of somehow pirating is the right thing to do because it sends some sort of message to a publisher. I mean, you want to send the message, don't buy the game.
It's ongoing trouble. We'll see what happens. But I mean,
I can tell you one of the things that's happening. EA has started to address the complaints, but it's kind of a so they'll address them a little bit, but at the same time they'll kind of say we're doing the right thing because it doesn't really matter. So their way of addressing it is one of the things that they've said is that they're going to add the ability to invalidate the game, to uninstall it, basically, like you would do iTunes. You know how you have like authorized machines in iTunes? So basically you deauthorize an installation of Spore, so you had those 3 authorizations.
So undoes it.
That makes perfect sense. Like, that seems like it should have.
It sort of works, but what happens if you're in one of those situations where Windows crashed and you just have to reinstall, and you have to reinstall the game, you never had an opportunity.
Reformat your hard drive.
Right, you have to reformat or whatever. You never had an opportunity to do that.
Then you can call them. I know, like, this has caused, like, we've had a lot of people on our forums talking about this, and like, maybe not surprisingly, they're all on the side of like no DRM, no restrictions whatsoever. But for some reason, I can just understand that, like, okay, say I installed this on a laptop, I installed it on a computer, and then you get 3 times, and I installed it on yet another computer, a work computer. That's a lot of installs, and then one of them I have to reformat my hard drive. Okay, I can make the call. Like, I understand. Like, if it means I get to keep getting games that are made with budgets of this size, I can make this phone call. A lot of people disagree with me. That's fine, and they're not wrong. But I mean, that's my point.
It seems to me the people who are upset about DRM are like people who are more likely to pirate it to begin with. Like this news story being like, Spore sales.
I don't know necessarily about that. There's a lot of people online like who are very concerned about like online freedoms and like things like that, encroachment of like.
Well,
it's like this is the identity package. It's like whatever. It's like the internet libertarian thing.
It's like, that's a good point. It is like that. It really is, dude.
But like Spore's so mass market. I used to work at EB, and like the kind of people who would come in to buy The Sims or the kind of people who come in to buy Spore are not the people who are asking like, how many times can I install this on a computer?
That would be Electronic Arts' other argument, because they say that of the 437,138 people who have installed the game at the time of this writing, only 0.4% had actually tried to install it in excess of the 3 times.
That seems reasonable.
Also, that number is scary when you go back to the 170,000 people who stole it.
It is really scary, isn't it?
Yeah. It makes you wonder, hey, maybe Spore should have been a console game.
It makes you wonder, maybe they should have approached the digital rights management a little differently. I mean, again, go back to what Starduck has done. They sold, what was it,
Galactic Civ, or are you thinking of
Galciv? That was the one they sold so many of, right? They sold hundreds of thousands of, and it had no DRM on it at all.
And Sins as well.
And Sins. I mean, it hasn't backfired for them. It's actually worked quite to the opposite. And, it's like the original, I don't know it's been such a big deal anymore, but during the era of Star Force, the whole deal was, well, if you put all this DRM stuff on there, it impacts the performance of the game. Now it's not so much, I guess, impacting the performance of the game as it is impacting your ability to use and enjoy the game. I mean, come on, not having more than one login on a game, it's
I was just thinking maybe because like I play with PC gamers a lot, I know how many of them do pirate. The enthusiast set, the ones that read previews and know shit.
And what percentage would you?
It would be just an estimate, but I know quite a bit of them are fucking more than happy to pirate shit. So maybe that's why I kind of tend to now and then fall on. And I always have. It's not like a sudden reflection of my changing career. I've always been on the side of like getting money where money's due to you.
Oh, absolutely.
But I know a lot of people that rip shit off that way. So.
Well, EA still has plenty of money in the bank because they have ended their merger negotiations with Take-Two.
Finally.
At the beginning of the week, it was announced that they have officially withdrawn their offer. How did they state it? They've announced that while EA continues to have a high regard for Take-Two's creative teams and products, after careful consideration, including a management presentation and review of other due diligence materials provided by Take-Two Software Interactive, EA has decided not to make a proposal to acquire Take-Two and terminated discussions. So that was the end of this long saga. When they finally sat down at the table in private, the discussions went away. There was rumors that the declining numbers for Grand Theft Auto 4 could have been impacting Take-Two's position at the bargaining table. There was also an immediate impact on Take-Two's stock, which dropped about just a little bit over $6 per share, or about 30%, immediately after EA backed out of this deal. So, what happens now to Take-Two?
They make more Grand Theft Autos.
do they make more? I mean, they're going to be in a tough position. Look, so EA's not going to buy them. Do you think it's a play by EA to try and position themselves to come in later and pick it up at a cheap price?
That's like schoolyard bartering, where you're like,
right,
that shit sucks, dude. Why did your mom buy you that? And then the next day you're like, you want to trade that? You really want to trade that for a Transform? That's cool. I'll do it.
I mean, the question is, does EA look for something else to buy, or does someone else look to buy 2K now?
That would be the question. I mean, does this make it an affordable deal where maybe like someone like an Ubisoft now can come in and partner with Take-Two, like where because the value of the shares dropping down to $15.45. That's a whole other ballgame when you're talking in that realm. EA shares also dropped, so there was also some investor backlash against them not having that acquisition.
There's also the possibility that the stocks were sort of unnaturally inflated to reflect the.
Oh, there's definitely that definitely figures into it.
And our entire economy is in shambles. I don't know if you noticed.
Really?
Yeah.
What's happening?
Watch the news.
Oh, okay.
The price of milk is up.
Oh, well, I don't drink milk anyway.
The price of whiskey is also going up.
Yeah.
Damn it! That's not fair.
To everything else, like I'm learning how to subsist off of boiled nettles and
dude, nettles.
Reading the road again and again.
Dude, nettles not so tasty. Nettles.
Hey, but when you got to do it, you can eat bark. I can cut up my belt and boil that shit.
Yeah.
I'm planning for it, man.
He's going to have a show on the Discovery Channel.
Food Network.
Food Network. Excellent.
Survivor Man.
And one place that EA won't be improving their bottom line will be Madden sales in Japan. This is a very bizarre.
Why even put it out there if you're not going to translate it?
Right. So what EA did was they released Madden 09 in Japan with absolutely no localization other than a very thin Japanese language instruction book.
And American football is not very common there.
But to say, of course, every kid growing up in Japan's tossing a football around in the backyard, knows the rules by heart. It's crazy.
In the giant backyard.
But it was funny to see it getting like 5s in Famitsu. It's like
You got 3 5s and a 7, racking up a grand total of 22 out of 40 from Famitsu, which is
and the reviews are funny. They're like, this game seems pretty good, but I don't know what's happening.
But that's their payback for every time I see another fucking Koei game come in here, and I swear it's the same damn game that I did reviews on 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what they said.
Millions of copies over there,
The Famitsu reviewer said, with the sport as nuances, this one having no localization at all is tough. You can't do anything with the superstar mode at all if you don't know English. Having just the manual is a pain. I mean, why would they just do it like that? Do they really... Is it that inexpensive to manufacture it and just put it out over there? Is it a token?
It's a mystery.
This shit happens all the time both ways. It's like, why did Infinite Discovery come out and be called Infinite Undiscovery here? And
but at least it had like English menus.
Yeah,
it did. I know but
it had a non-English title.
It's much worse.
It was infinitely undiscovered. Down at the Austin Game Developers Conference, which is kind of in a funny spot. Austin GDC started to exist primarily to offer an outlet for the MMO community around Austin, which wasn't getting as much play.
All those Tabula Rasa fans were up in arms.
Right, and the MMO business down in Austin is fairly contracted at the moment, so I wonder what the future of that show is going to be down the line. Needless to say, Id was down at the show. Filefront's Daniel Perez, who does news for us, he works for us also, One Up, Filefront, whatever. He was at a talk that Tim Willits was giving, and some confusion came as a result of some of the things that Willett said, which he then corrected through Shack News. So the big hullabaloo was over whether or not Rage had changes made to the comment and specific content. Specifically,
it boils down to semantics.
It is semantics. It is semantics. So the comments he made was that I wouldn't say the overall story was changed in any way in order to fit to the 360 version, but how the player experiences Rage story has been altered. So, did content get removed from the game? Well, no. I mean, I guess if you take the idea of content being like this bucket full of content, then the content didn't get reduced, but it did get changed in the way you experienced. Evidently, it was originally intended that there'd be a number of different wastelands, like 5 or 6.
This all stems from the capacity of the
DVD disc.
And I know that at QuakeCon
problem. Yeah.
I mean, John Carmack made it clear. I mean, because this first came up there at QuakeCon this year, and he brought up and said, like, they charge us, it's prohibitive for us to make a game with like 3 discs or whatever.
Because Microsoft is licensing feeing by the disc.
Right. And he's like, I'm like, are you bringing this up because you're hoping that you get a whole bunch of people pissed off and they can, change Microsoft's mind? And he's like, yes. So I wonder if this means that Microsoft didn't, obviously it means Microsoft didn't budge, or is this yet another sort of move in an ongoing and yet to be decided battle.
Because everyone kind of believes that Microsoft is going to let Square Enix have however many discs they need for Final Fantasy 13.
Well, big surprise there, right?
But you would think you would also let it have however many discs they need.
You would anticipate that.
Yeah.
Now, the other argument is that if it wasn't entirely licensing driven, one of the things that they brought up was that as far as the experience goes, they wanted to be able to have the user just put a disc in and have whatever level they're playing in load in and not have to be up there fiddling around with discs while they were playing their levels. So by breaking it into 2 wastelands, you're on Wasteland 1 and you're playing, and you don't change discs until you go to Wasteland 2, and you're not having to go back and swap discs and deal with all that loading. So, I mean, I can understand that part.
When does that game come out? Next year?
Oh, of course. I mean, I don't know. Have you seen it? I haven't seen anything on release on it.
I haven't. Yeah, it's dude. There's never going to be a
dude.
release
If it's a
date.
if it's a 2010 game, maybe they should just change their spec.
Yeah, they could go for the next box.
Saying.
All right.
You guys think the next box is going to be out in 2010?
Yeah.
No. From which publisher?
I think Microsoft. Christmas 2010.
This is 08. No, it's not.
Wasn't that your theory?
I think I'm a year off.
I think I'm a year
2011.
off. You've revised your opinion.
Yeah,
much like Palin.
With the way the economy's going right now, I mean, I know that's like there's only so far you can look in the long term. I don't know. I mean,
it depends. Let's look and see how the 360 lineup looks next year, because that'll be very telling. If you're depending on what sort of titles you're seeing from key developers, it'll immediately cue you in to whether or not they have their A teams already working on
the
prototype hardware or not.
What console is Halo team working on?
Right.
Yeah.
And
like
since
prices
due
are
to their
dropping.
ads, which are now really heavily pushing next gen, there's an argument. I mean, there's a strong argument to make for 2010, which would mean that I was originally correct.
You're always right.
I'm always right. I'm going to hedge my bets.
You're right even when you're wrong.
I'm hedging my bets. I'm playing both sides.
Are you flipping and flopping back?
Flippity flop. There's all kinds of interesting information coming out of this great interview that Peter Moore has given. It's been broken up.
It keeps giving.
It keeps giving. The pieces that I wanted to hit on that I think are really interesting are 2 of them. Number 1 being his comments about Rare and how they were really trying to keep Rare going. They were trying to figure out how to tap into what Rare was doing, and the Stamper brothers were still there. Everyone was behind them, and this is to quote Peter Moore, they finally got to a point where they realized that their skill sets were from a different time and a different place and were not applicable in today's market.
Ouch.
wow.
Harsh.
What do you guys think about that? I mean, have Rare games gone the way of the wind and they're no longer relevant?
People like Viva Pinata.
I thought they liked Viva Pinata.
Yeah, but I think when you think though of Cameo and Perfect Dark, I mean, I think that's maybe what
Grabbed by the Ghoulies.
Well, I mean, Grab by the Ghoulies is very indicative.
Perfect Dark is probably the most high-profile one you look at, and that wasn't very received.
But let's talk. Did Perfect Dark miss because of the game design and concept or the execution? I mean, I could argue that the execution was off. The engine was not very impressive.
I think compare that to like COD. I mean, there's a lot of years between them, but compare it to COD 2, which also came out. Actually, yeah, there's no years between them. They came out at the same time.
Both launch
same
games.
day.
COD 2 sold a whole lot more.
Yeah.
I mean, just like
there was no comparison.
I mean, the people, the whole. When you think of the even though it's kids that play Halo and COD, and it's older, there's people, everyone, our age and older than us and stuff. It's just so different than the whole like. I mean, because. I mean, I don't want to knock it too hard, but Perfect Dark really did have that like Playmobil vibe to me. I mean, the characters really, it had that, like the Weeble Wobbles type thing.
Do you remember Che trying to sell everybody on it being good?
But when it came out, I remember.
Awesome.
I mean, a lot of people tried to pretend like they liked it, but I remember when I saw it, all I could see were her elaborately like manicured fingernails and the blue arrow on the ground telling me where to go.
Remember when you came over to my house and we tried to play it split screen?
Oh God, it was painful.
That was the last time I touched Perfect Dark.
You know what? That might have been the last time I touched it too. That was so painful.
Yeah.
I hated that. It was awful.
And as someone who beat Cameo, and you live with me, and you played it, and you remember we were both
on the
cursing
review,
our mind out how bad how obnoxious that game was.
A lot of people insist that it was good,
including at the
time.
Peter Moore. At the time, Peter Moore.
They were behind it. They were definitely.
He called out my review and Christian Nutt's review by name, and he said that his daughter loved Cameo. And Cameo has some good particle effects. It has some bright colors. There's a lot of characters on screen, but
I think it's truer to what they want to make.
At no point is the combat in Cameo ever good ever. And if you think so, you're completely wrong.
He also
are they peasants though. If you like Cameo, are you?
You're just a little kid.
It's so funny to see the flip. Okay, so
a child peasant.
You said it. You said it, not me. Peasants have children. They usually have a lot of them.
I was the high score in that game. That's fine.
All right, so last little piece I wanted to pull out of this because it's really indicative of the way roles have reversed was Moore's comments on the hard drive in the 360. And he came clean on the fact that Microsoft actually aggressively got out of the 360 business and that they know they got, out of the Xbox business, and they know they got out of the Xbox business before they needed to, and they did it because having a hard drive in every Xbox, quote, killed them. We were still selling at $199, and the hard drive was like $70.
How... In the year 2003, how are they spending $70 for a 10 gig hard drive, was it, or is it 20?
It was 8. It was 8.
Like, were they buying them at service merchandise? Like I don't understand. I don't understand.
That still exists?
No, precisely. That's why they had to stop making Xbox.
Hold on, I have to fill out my card for another 10 Xbox hard drives.
I don't understand. Do you understand? How were they spending $70 for a 8 gigabyte hard drive in 2000?
Dude, I'm just telling you what the man said. He says that they determined that around 25...
that shit ain't right.
He said that they determined that around 25 million unit mark was where they wanted to slow things down and just not sell anymore and move to the 360 as quickly as we possibly could. And to this day, people still believe we left the Xbox too early, but it was purely for financial purposes, says the company that has billions of dollars in the bank.
Jacked up the price on the 20 gig hard drive.
But he has no reason to lie.
They obviously have a problem buying hard drives.
But you guys think they're going to do it again in 2010, though? That's what's weird to me.
Move to the next console?
Yeah,
I think it also depends a lot on how this holiday season goes.
Now that they've got a lot of people, they're dumping the price. They're going to get more and more people buying it, and their install base is going to, continue to grow at a decent pace if things go the way they have.
This Christmas with $199, with Lips, with Put You in the Movies, with Avatars, they're hoping to instead of euthanizing 360 the way they did Xbox One, is to transition it into a mass market thing to compete with a Wii.
Exactly,
come out with a new high-end console in 2010.
Here's the problem, though, right? Look, if you've got now the pressure's toward multi-platform because you have these enormous, costly investments, and you want to hedge your bet by distributing the risk across these platforms, and they're going to go and screw it up again and say you've got to either go with us or that's it. Maybe PC, because of course PC by 2010, technically PCs could be doing next generation shit. It probably will by next year at some point. But other than that, though, I don't know. It just doesn't seem all that smart. There's so many studios. Also, how many studios do you think they're we're just really eager to get the next generation of hardware so we can really pull out all the stops and do what we want to do? You're still seeing games and you're like,
none.
Shit.
I would say on that front, I can definitely say none.
I think third parties would be eager to get on board because when you become a launch title, you get in the good graces, you become automatically important. I think
it's taking longer and longer to get the engines refined, the production process refined.
You think you think it's going to bomb?
No, I said, dude, no, but you were saying that as though becoming a launch title is nothing but just this giant safety net or something. You could fucking bomb being a launch title,
or you could become Call of Duty,
and you could rush to make the date, and then you could become Call of Duty, but there's something to be said about that. Call of Duty is a fucking it was just a good game period,
right.
But a lot of other ones, there's even Resistance wasn't a super success at the beginning, and that's worked because they were able to continue to have Sony's backing and keep promoting it. It's you still see ads for Resistance and stuff, so it's different. But what about a lot? Think about some of those games that we've already forgotten about that came out in the first few months.
Well, a Perfect Dark
Condemned.
Well, Condemned 2 didn't do as well as 1, but for example, Perfect Dark Zero has sold 1 million copies. But if they say Rare announces a new Perfect Dark,
Perfect Dark Zero also traded a lot on its reputation.
That's true,
and the expectation for it to follow up on that. Launch title or otherwise, I think it would have been able to trade on that business.
But the next 2 years is going to be crazy times.
All right, the business I'm trading on is heading to SFO and getting on the plane.
Have fun in LA.
Have fun. It'll be a blast. We're doing a little party on Saturday. I'm looking forward to that a lot. Until next week, you know where to catch up with us, boards.oneup.com. If you want, should we let them, what do you think? Andrew, I'm throwing this to you. Thread about the game development journalist thing.
It's going to happen anyways.
All right. So we'll take a look at it. There you go. Boards.oneup.com for Andrew and Shane. And Sean, you going to come back next week?
Yeah, and we're going to be ghosts until then.
Hold on. Would you like to do the ghost part?
Yeah.
Sean, you're going to be...
All right, hold on.
You should be Pops Ghostly.
This is Garnet. Thanks very much for listening. Until next week, we are...
Ghosts.